All right, we are live. Welcome back to another live stream. I'm welcoming my special guest, Mexican Spec. Just coming off a tour with the Uncle Tony's Garage live stream. So, welcome, Mex.
Thank you very much, Jay.
Hopefully, so he's on the phone. Hopefully, you can hear us all right. If you're in chat, please put down a hello and tell us where you're from. I'd like to have that interactive map working, but all right, Dale's here. Hello, Dale. We got Dale so far. We're just going to get into the introduction here, talk about what Mexican Spec does. He has a business.
I don't see anybody in the chat.
Chris Freemasser is here too. How you doing, Chris? You don't have access to the chat, Max?
It's not. I don't see anybody in the chat.
Interesting. So I have live stream comments coming through. I got Chris's comment up on the screen.
How you doing, Chris? I can't see it. It is so small. It looks like a black line to me. Comments.
I wonder why that is. Well, maybe it's the software through StreamYard. It could be.
Can you put us? Can you put us like you had before, above and below?
Sure, I can. Let's try that.
It's making everything so small.
How's that work?
It got a little bigger, but I still can't read it.
Oh, I don't have his comment there. Oh boy. Now Chris is in Rochester, right down the street from me, essentially. Right in Rochester, New York. Can you see his comment that he put up there now? I put it on our.
I can see it, but it's really hard to read. With Uncle Tony, I saw the chat. The chat.
Interesting. And I don't think I would have anything different in terms of the layout, but we'll give it a few minutes. We'll get hopefully everyone here so that we can start talking about your business, your channel.
If you could read the comments, then that would be better, because
absolutely
I can't read them.
Well, basically, Chris said that you'd send the cartel boys up to Rochester if he didn't show up for this. So
I wish I had control like that and power.
He's got the power. Did you guys happen to see? I laughed so hard. Speaking of power, I forget the guy's name, but my friend sent it to me. It was about him setting up his bench vise with a switch that powered an ignition coil, because his buddies would come over to his shop and mess with him all the time, and he'd take his vise and crank it down as tight as they could make it, and every time he'd have to reach back and undo it anytime he needed to use the bench vise. And he told them to stop messing with his bench vise, and they wouldn't. So he decided to make it a game, so he's see how tight they could make it. And basically he rigged his vise up so that he had a 6-volt ignition coil from a Ford Model A or Model T, and he wired it to a 12-volt power supply from a computer, and the switch was on the vise. So when they cranked the vise in to tighten it, it would shock them. And it was kind of funny, actually. And he tested it, grabbed onto it, and nearly fell over because of the voltage.
Yeah, well, I've been zapped by 12 volts from a coil. It's
it wakes you up in a hurry.
But I bet they didn't learn their lesson anyway.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if it was just for his video that he said that, he was doing that or what, but it was kind of funny. His presentation of it was really good. I thought it was funny. So we got a couple more minutes. We'll wait till the stragglers to come in, and then we'll get on with the presentation. I'm really hoping that you guys will be able to see the pictures that Mex sent me of the vehicles that he's got access to. These things are really, really cool. The process by which getting them into the States is actually, he made it pretty smooth too. We were talking into some detail about that. Mex, you have a person you work with that's able to come across the border into Mexico, take delivery of it, and bring it back into Arizona. So somebody in the United States who wanted to purchase one of these vehicles can take that into their possession. Is that right?
Yes, I can offer U.S. delivery, but it doesn't change the process. The vehicle does need to be paid for before it goes across, because the customs documents will be made out in the buyer's name as well as the Mexican ownership documents. So, and that is what is needed to get the car across. When Jason crosses a car, there will only be a part on the documents that say that he crossed it, not that he's the owner of it.
Right. And Jason is a gentleman you work with who is he in Arizona? Does he hail from Arizona or?
Yeah, he lives in Chandler, Arizona.
Cool.
It's about 3 hours for him to get to the border from his house.
And 3 hours to the Mexican line, and you're a few hours north of the,
No,
or sorry,
no,
south of the Mexican U.S. border in Arizona,
no.
right?
When he comes across, I'm already at the hotel in Nogales
Oh,
waiting for
right,
him,
right.
because I get there the day before.
I just was strictly asking regarding the logistics of it. When you bring him a vehicle to cross over, you're a couple hours from the U.S. Mexican border. So you drive up to that point, you rendezvous in Mexico, and then he brings them into Arizona.
I am 8 hours from the border if a normal person is driving, but it takes me 12 hours to get there. I do not drive fast. I don't put any I
Oh, I
don't
got it.
strain the vehicle or anything, and I stop in one of the big cities, have to stop for gas and checking oil and everything. And it's mostly desert that I have to drive through. So,
But
this,
these vehicles, for the most part, have lived in the desert climate, so it's not something that they have trouble, doing. I would say.
not necessarily, because I do not buy vehicles that are around me. I usually go 8 hours farther south of me to Guadalajara, where the vehicles are in nice condition, like the ones that I sent you, the Wagoneer that we're going to show. It's from there. It's not near the ocean, so there's no salt in the air, and there's no snow, so there's no salt on the road. And rust just is not an issue with the vehicles there as a general rule. Vehicles could have come from somewhere else, so you still have to check them. But if it's an original car from that area, it's usually not an issue.
So do you have people that bring cars from, let's say, the States, from the north or the Rust Belt and bring them into Mexico? Is that a thing too? And not
People bring
you specifically. Have you
oh
ever seen that?
oh yeah, people bring cars in all the time. There's an army of Mexicans buying vehicles at Copart that bring them in constantly.
Ah, okay, I got you. So they could theoretically go to a Copart in my area and purchase a block of vehicles and have them transported into Mexico if they were
Yeah,
cheap enough.
yeah, they do. But Mexico is divided in the border area and the inside of the country, and there are rules and regulations for vehicles coming into the border area, which extends I don't know how many kilometers down the road. But where I live in the inside of the country, you can't bring those vehicles in here. They won't allow it. Somehow they get down here because I see them for sale here, but they're not supposed to be here.
Huh.
They're mostly for parts. They're mostly for
Right.
parts in the border area, because we
Okay.
don't have things like that.
Do you have
Unfortunately,
salvage?
there's salvage yards here, but there's only new stuff in it. And for example, in the US, when a car, let's say an older car gets minor damage in an accident, the insurance company will send it to Copart. They'll salvage it because it's not worth it for them to put it together. Here in Mexico, there has to be at least 60% damage on that car for them to not fix it. They will fix anything. It doesn't matter how old it is. If you paid the insurance, they're fixing it. They don't scrap anything unless it's so far gone it's impossible to fix. So the things are very different. in the two different countries.
Now, in terms of that, and I don't know if you've run into this because you're mainly on the, seek out the cleanest, finest vehicles, but at least in New York, in a lot of states, let's say a vehicle got, damaged beyond what they deem repair, a percentage. This is a percentage of the expected value of the vehicle. That goes to like a Copart, or, salvage yards can bid on an insurance auction, but that title gets branded, right? Everything goes off the VIN number.
Right.
So if you repair them, which you can, you could purchase a vehicle that, is deemed totaled, but usually, the title's branded, it wipes out any warranty, and there's a whole process by which the state has to inspect it for safety, make sure it doesn't have stolen parts on it, et cetera, et cetera. By the time you're all said and done, you get a title, but it says salvage vehicle, and it greatly diminished the value of the vehicle.
Right.
Is there a process like that in Mexico? I'm not familiar.
Okay, the ownership document in Mexico is the original sales invoice from the dealership to the first owner. When that owner sells the vehicle on, he writes on the back of that document that he transfers his ownership to the next person on this date in this city, and then that person owns it. If the car is totaled and goes to the insurance company, they wipe out that paperwork and give you an invoice from the insurance company. So it's clear as day that the car was damaged and repaired, because the ownership document you have is from the insurance company. They have no way to hide that.
Okay. Yeah, because you actually were telling me that you can see every owner. If you bought a vehicle from the 50s in Mexico, almost like a title deed for a house, you can see every owner in every transaction from its original, what we call the MSO, right back here, right? You're probably familiar with it. The manufacturer certificate of origin, all the way through to the person that you're buying the vehicle from. It has every single name on there.
Right. You can trace who bought it, then who bought it next, what city they lived in, then the next one, what city they lived in, and what date they bought it on. You can trace the car's whole history. It would be wonderful if that was the situation in the US. You have a Hemi Superbird, and you had the whole history from day one, where that car was, who owned it, if there was any famous people that owned it, the whole thing. That would be great. But nope, they take your title, give you a new one, and you know nothing about the history.
That's wild. So I'm going to try to put up some of the vehicles. I think I found a way that I can do this efficiently with the software we're using. And I apologize for that delay, but it looks like we got a pretty good crowd here gathering, so that's awesome.
I can't see any of that.
I know. I'll walk you through it. I know that you're not able to see it, but everyone else should be able to see it. What I was going to do, and these kind of switched order a little bit when I downloaded them, but if you would, there's a 79 Wagoneer you sent me the pictures of.
Right. I'm sorry that almost all the pictures are red. It's not true that all of the vehicles in Mexico are red, just the ones that I chose to show here.
Oh, red's a good color. So let me get into this. We're going to share the screen and then make sure that everyone can see it. So, and I have like 45 windows open, so bear with me. So this is what I got so far. So this is the 79 Wagoneer. I don't know that you'll be able to see all of the pictures of it that Mex sent me because it kind of compressed them into a block that may not be shareable, but hopefully you can see the screen that I'm on in the live stream. If you can comment down below to tell me if you can see what I'm seeing. Dale, Chris are here.
I can see the front of the truck.
Okay. So let's go over this one first, because
Okay.
I want to hit a couple of your main vehicles. Tell me, the features of this, and okay, it's visible but very small. I'm gonna try. Nope, it does nothing. Let's go this way. How about that, Dale? All right. Fortunately, the it does minimize the pictures in this format of StreamYard, so we'll go with the '79 Jeep Wagoneer.
Okay, you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're here for.
Okay, this is an original Mexican vehicle. It has a 4.6 liter inline six, which was an engine that was only made in Mexico. The 4.2 was the largest that American Motors and Jeep used in the U.S. And the story goes that the 4.6 was made because the gasoline was so bad here that it needed the extra cubic inches, but they still did sell a lot of the 4.2 liters in these cars. Not in the Jeep, but in the AMC type cars here. The Mexican vehicles, as a general rule, are base model vehicles. They do not have power windows and locks and everything that the US vehicles have. So you have a 6-cylinder, you have a 4-speed manual transmission, you have the 4-wheel drive. This one has the Mexico only Alpina package on it, which were the white wagon wheels and the certain interior, the bench seat that it had. But if you can possibly show the interior, it's got a beautiful interior in it.
Hey, Max, I know you can't see the comments here. I did have a question from someone in the chat that asked if you were mechanical. I'm assuming that it's Venus Vibes. I'm assuming that question was for you, but I'm mechanical, if that's a question. But Max, why don't you tell us about your experience with the mechanical side of things?
Well, I can do the work. In high school, that was my major in auto shop, and I can keep a car running, but unfortunately, my arthritis doesn't allow me to do things. Luckily, I live in a warm area, so it doesn't affect me as much. But when it gets cold, my hands just freeze up, so it's very difficult to do anything. The truck that
Dale,
I sold to Jason, it's an '82 Ford B100 carryall. It actually stopped running on me on the highway, and I was lucky to get off the side of the road. So I got under the hood and messed with a few things, and I was able to make it run a bit better than it was before, and was able to get home. So I would call myself mechanical.
well, you can get yourself out of a bind. That helps. Uh,
Yeah,
Dale Schisler, they made a comment that they were tough-looking trucks, and I agree. Especially
yeah,
that one, very clean.
yeah, and they are prone to rust in rusty areas. But again, this one lives in that Guadalajara area that there's no rust on it at all. Um, the guy that owns it uses it for work every once in a while, tows a little trailer. He doesn't use it a lot. The last time I talked to him, the truck was in stores just waiting for a new owner. But the Alpina package, it says right on the side of the truck Alpina, and it's a really pretty truck, really nice.
So, there's a couple of comments that I want to get to. The Guadalajara area, is that similar to Arizona in like a very arid climate where not a lot of humidity and very dry desert like?
No, it's not desert like. It's I don't know what the area would be like. It's a big city. It's one of the three big cities in Mexico. One of the big cities is Mexico City, the capital. The other one is Monterrey in Nuevo León, and then you have Guadalajara. Anything that comes to Mexico, like somebody comes here and gives concerts, they're going to those three cities, and that's about it. They're not going anywhere else to the smaller places. But I like going there because there's a lot of vehicles in a I'm not going to say a small area because it's a big city. Um, there's a lot of choices there. I can find just about anything I need there, and it's a very safe place to be.
Excellent. Max, what is your website so I can
It,
show it?
it's mexicanspec.com.
So www.mexicanspec.com, right?
Yes.
So I'm going to put that on the screen because it was asked, Venus Vibes asked about how to get a hold of you. So I put that up on there. And
I'm also on Instagram, and you can send me messages on Instagram, Mexican Spec on Instagram as well.
oh, okay. That's awesome.
Because my website only has my email address.
All right, I got to put this comment up because it's funny. Shopcat commented, I am made of meat, although I am a mechanic, so am I mechanical? I'd say so.
Part-time, maybe.
All right. Venus Vibe is here in our live stream from Iran. That's pretty cool.
Nice.
So I did have an interactive map. I'm going to restart that next week. I know with you being on Mex, I want to kind of highlight your vehicles and talk about the process of by which, you know, some of those vehicles, like I'm really, really I'm not a Volkswagen fan, but the fact that Volkswagen made the old school Beetles up into the 90s, right?
2000s.
2000s. Okay.
2003 was the last year.
2003. So you could get a legit classic Volkswagen Beetle produced with the same style, shape, essentially, as a classic Beetle up until the early 2000s.
Yes.
Mex has a few of them on his website, and they're absolutely gorgeous. And I just find it fascinating that a vehicle that stature, I should say, was produced for such a long time, and you're able to get it into the 2000s. That's kind of.
I just read today that the only reason that they stopped producing the car is because Mexico City changed the law and required every taxi there to have at least 4 doors. They were using the Beetles for taxis there. They took out the front seat. You get in the back seat. There's no room for luggage. It was perfect.
Okay.
It was perfect.
Yeah.
But now they require 4 doors, so there was nobody to buy the car anymore.
What was the typical power plant in those? I'm assuming they went to fuel injection.
In 1993, they went to fuel injection, which it's basically a carburetor with a fuel injector in it. TBI.
Yeah, like a TBI, kind of like that Corvette that I bought, the '84 Corvette. It had very rudimentary fuel injection, but fuel injection nonetheless.
Right. It has a 1600 cc Type 1 engine in it. But the only way you could tell if it has fuel injection when you open the hood is if you see a small wire running to the carburetor. Then you know it's fuel injection. Otherwise, everything looks exactly the same as it did forever.
So Venus Vibes had a couple different questions here. I know you're not able to see them, so I'll read them to you. You wanted to know, do you have a garage? And the other part was, got a good question, why the car maker doesn't use a magnet engine. That would be probably geared more towards me, but I don't know how a magnet engine would work. I guess magnet engine would be similar to an electric motor that works off of, the force of magnetic fields, but I don't know about a magnet engine. That's actually beyond my knowledge.
There are quite a few people putting electric motors in the VW Beetles.
Oh yeah.
And how long they last, I don't know, but they're back on the road.
Chris Freemeister, sorry, Chris. I messed up your Chris Rock. That's what I'm calling you because Freemeister. US Beetles went to fuel injection in 1975, and I would assume that the Beetles then probably used the same type of Bosch fuel injection as the 78 Jaguar I had and my buddy Mike's 280ZX. Those had the Jetronic fuel injection, but I'm not familiar with Beetles of that vintage of what fuel injection they used. But the original Bosch fuel injection was pretty well used across many major brands at that time. So
Yes, but the the U.S. Beetle, U.S. Spec Beetle, went to fuel injection because the government required less emissions out of it. It's when you look at both countries, it's interesting to see the cars that we got because the government stuck their nose in the car making business. In Mexico, for example, the government outlawed V8 engines for the 1985 model year in passenger cars. So Ford, in place of putting a smaller engine in the Mustang, stopped production of the Mustang.
Ah,
Chevrolet said, no, we're not putting a smaller engine in the Monte Carlo. We're just going to stop building the Monte Carlo. So as a send off, Ford Mexico built 500 Mustang SVOs, which in the US had the 2.3 liter 4-cylinder turbo engine, but in Mexico had the 302 V8 like they always did. And there were 300 hatchbacks and 200 coupes SVOs made as
so
the best of the best that they could make as a send off for the Mustang in Mexico.
a good friend of mine that I've had featured some of his stuff on my channel when I went to Cars and Coffee and whatnot. He had a Mustang. I thought it was an SVO in the States. He had a 2.3 liter turbocharged Mustang, Fox body Mustang, that was pretty darn quick. Of course, he dialed it up, the turbo up, and boosted it quite a bit. But it used to suck the valve seals. It would pull the valve seals apart, and he'd have to chase out the springs that go around the valve seals. That's how much boost he ran in it. But that thing really flew for what it was. Did they use that power plant in Mexico? Was that their 2.3, or was it just naturally aspirated?
They didn't have any 2.3s in Mexico.
Oh, okay.
Every Mustang ever sold in Mexico from 1964 and a half till 1984 had a V8 engine in it. They never
Interesting.
used a 6-cylinder, never used a 4-cylinder. Now Chevrolet did the same thing as a send off for the Monte Carlo. They built the best Monte Carlo they could, and with the 350, which the Monte Carlo always had a 350 in Mexico, but they put a 4-speed manual transmission in it. It always had the Pontiac Grand Prix instruments as well. The car came with the 350, came with the 4-speed, came with the Pontiac dash, came with power locks but no power windows, had the checkerboard wheels, and it came in dark blue or white. And it was a faster car than the Corvette, which is why the car was not built in the U.S.
Interesting.
It's hard to find one that people have not messed with. There's one for sale right now, but the guy made it a race car and took out the heater box and everything and smoothed over the firewall. And I've seen them they took the original 350 out and put a 383 stroker in it. That's ridiculous. It's a very rare original car that is worth a lot of money the way it is, and they keep messing with them.
But you typically find the cars that haven't been messed with, at least
I
from my experience.
I am That's the ones that I list, but I'm drawn to cars that need a lot of work. I always have been. I
I'm
want to make
definitely.
that car pretty again. But it's not cost effective. That's why I've never made money on cars.
Well, you did mention that the shop labor rate in your area was astronomically low. I mean, I don't know how they can even survive at the rate you mentioned, but you want to talk about that a little bit, because some of these cars that you get, you have to put some work into, and you have the local shops dial them in. I assume.
I can give you some examples of what I have been charged. Um, the truck that I just sold to Jason, I brought it to my friend's. He has a tire and alignment shop, and he had to remove the radiator, which wasn't too big of a job because it didn't have an automatic transmission. He sent it out, had the radiator. There was a few leaks in it, so I don't want to drive across a desert with a leaky radiator. So it was fixed, and he brought it back. The repair was, I think, 300 pesos, so it was like $17 or something to get it welded and fixed and everything. And then he charged me 900 pesos for all the labor that he did on the car, checking suspension and doing the radiator and everything. So it was about $48 or something for all the work that he did on it.
$48.
Yeah.
That is, I I wouldn't even turn on the shop lights for that. I don't think.
Exactly, but the cost of living here, I mean, I rent a house that's 3 bedroom, 2 bath. It has an extra lot, which is where I park my cars. It's all enclosed, and I have room for 9 cars, but I only have 8 right now, 8 or 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And the house that I live in, this whole area was built for the workers of the sugarcane factory here from way back, from when the town was just just came into being. But the factory has been shut down, so the original families still own these houses. If you can find one for rent, it's a miracle. But I'd happen to know a guy that turned me onto this house some years ago. But my rent is 3,900 pesos for the house,
Wow.
which is right around $200.
Two hundred dollars.
Yeah, all my living expenses would be about, I could get by on $700 for the month. All my living expenses, gasoline, food, everything I want to do, I can get by on $700 a month.
That is
Very low.
amazing.
I watched a guy on YouTube. He does a live. He's a stringer. He drives around Los Angeles and he records, the accidents and fires and everything. And he parked his car, got out, went to one of those food trucks, and bought his dinner and came back. And I asked him, well, how much did that cost? Because it's just a small plate of food. He said $30. I said, oh my God.
Yeah, that's.
Salud.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, the cost of living, it definitely is quite astronomical, especially in California.
Yeah, we
Here,
go out to a little taco place here, and I think the bill is like $12 or $13 for both of us for the tacos and everything that we eat. So it's not bad. It's very easy to live here with very little money, except for the
right?
gasoline, which we're paying almost $6 a gallon for.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah. And it goes up every 15 days, no matter what. The price goes up every 15 days.
Is that government controlled, or how is that?
That's how it works here. It's the price is not tied to the price of the barrel of oil. The price just keeps going up.
So I don't know if everyone can see it. You had a Dodge Ramcharger, and yeah. So Venus Fives wanted to know if I could come to Iran for speaking live. That would be pretty interesting. I don't know if they'd like me there though. I have the
I don't
Dodge.
think they like me there either.
Yeah.
For various reasons.
Yeah. I have the Dodge Ramcharger pulled up. I'm sorry, guys, if you can't see it that big, but you did want me to mention the Dodge Ramcharger. I figured I'd at least put it on the screen. Maybe you could talk about it a little bit and
okay.
Tell them what's going on.
In case you guys don't know, the Dodge Ramcharger was sold in Mexico only in the 1999 to 2001 model year. It was based on the Ram truck, the third generation Ram truck. And while we actually thought that it was made from a regular cab short bed, it wasn't. The truck is actually 6 inches shorter than a regular cab short bed truck. So when people ask me, can I put 4-wheel drive on it? Because every one of them was a 2-wheel drive model. I said, well, the problem is that the truck is 6 inches shorter and you would have to modify the gas tank to make it smaller to fit all of the 4-wheel drive parts under there. It's not just a plug and play. But this particular one, the silver one, is a really nice one. And again, it's in Guadalajara. It needs some work on the roof. It had some hail damage or something. So my body shop here in my town will pound all the hail dents out and repaint the roof for 8,000 pesos and make it look brand new again. So
now help us illiterate, in converting money. How much is 8,000 pesos to the U.S. dollar roughly? I know
let's make it easy because the exchange rate right now, yesterday it hit 20 pesos. It went down 2 cents, so at 1998, but let's just round it off at 20, so it would be $400. to
Wow.
repaint the whole roof. And I made sure that I asked him, because when you ask for a paint job, you have to ask, well, what paint are you actually going to put on it? Because some will just put one coat on it and then it's not. No, these guys put 2 coats of color and 3 coats of clear. And if you want more coats of clear, they'll be glad to put it on. It's a little extra cost for more
So
protection.
that is, so you're talking $400 parts and labor.
Everything.
That is crazy. And is that
'Cause
base clear or is that an enamel?
no,
Or
like I said, it's two coats of color and 3 coats of clear. I showed them a picture of one of those Ramchargers that needed a complete paint job, complete in red, and we all know red costs more money. They said 30,000 pesos, which is $1,500 to repaint the whole truck top to bottom. And they do good work. I've seen the work that they do. I saw one of those aluminum Ford trucks that rolled over. They replaced the cab and they did some body work and all that. The truck came out beautiful, like it was brand new again. That would have been a totaled vehicle in the U.S. Not here. They fixed it.
So there's a comment in the comments that I'm going to go back to, but Hustle.Gamble says he gets the same price here in Nogales, Arizona. I think that's possible. That's pretty amazing price.
It is, and depends on the quality, but you guys are paying a lot more for the materials over there. I'm not sure how they're getting the materials that cheap.
Right, because base clear. I mean, even the cheapest paint job that I could come up with was with spray paint and a urethane clear was $100 in materials, and that was like, pretty, I guess, inexpensive to say the least. And I'm sure the quality of that wasn't good, but that car was essentially an $800 Corvette that smelled like an ashtray and hit everything but the lottery. And I was just trying to get it in one color, so it wasn't.
But ask your viewer if that's getting painted in a booth for that price, because these guys have their own booth. It's a professional shop. It's not a guy in his garage.
Oh, I got it. Yeah, so you said that Sonora, Arizona is right on the border. It's 1 minute from Mexico.
Nogales, Arizona. It's Nogales, Arizona, and on the Mexican side is Nogales, Sonora. It's split. The city is split by the border.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Same name.
So I'm learning some geography here today. I'm learning some geography. So, Adamingo, hello. Hopefully I said that correctly. I'll put his comment up on the screen. Got some pretty decent chat going on, Max. So your Instagram, what is the best way to reach you regarding the purchase of one of your vehicles? Do you like
Instagram works well because I have the Meta Business tab open, and all of those comments go right there.
Okay, so you get that right to your phone essentially.
I'm always on my computer. I don't play with my phone very much.
Okay, all right. Well, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, we were watching somebody's Skype call. Essentially, Mexican Spec is in Mexico. He's calling into the show. That is the way we can communicate the most efficiently. And I can change it so that you're only looking at me because I'm on the live stream, but you should be able to hear Mexican Spec. I was showing some of the vehicles that he has access to and he sells and imports into the United States. They're quite amazing, things that I've never seen in my life, actually, and they are factory made, presented as almost new in some cases. So that's the amazing part of some of the vehicles that you presented, at least that I've seen on your channel, Mex. I wanted to show that Ford Carryall. Tell us about that Ford Carryall and how that process was, because that was a factory Ford. Essentially, was a pickup truck built in Mexico and then sent to a body installer that modified the body.
Ford made the cabin chassis on regular cab short bed, which is the only truck they ever sold here. They didn't sell any of the extra cabs, they didn't sell any 3/4 tons, any of that. But it didn't have the roof. It came up to the windshield, and that truck was sent to a conversion company, and they built whatever they needed to build to order, whether it be a cargo truck or a passenger vehicle with 3 rows of seats or whatever the first owner ordered. They built whatever they wanted, the colors they wanted, everything like that. The one that I sent you, I actually have a client on it. He's going to be calling Jason this weekend to as a reference for me to see how I handled his transaction. And it's a 1976 model, and it's something that I've never seen before because it has XL badging on it. It has XL badging on the fenders. It has an XL badge on the grill, even though it says custom on the dashboard on the glove box, which is weird. But it has one piece of trim on the fender, and it ends at the fender. And it ends at the fender because the conversion company didn't have more of that trim to put down the rest of the truck. So
Right. It almost sounds. It almost
it's a
sounds
beautiful
like
truck.
it almost sounds like the cutaway vans built in the United States. So I worked at a truck dealership, and they would get cutaway vans, and then a body company would put on the utility body that you wanted. So you had the front half of a van, and then whatever you want. If you wanted a flatbed, if you wanted, a box truck, insulated box truck, they would build it for you. I do want to get next. There's a few comments coming through that I think are interesting, and you may be interested in. So Bud's Builds, welcome. He asked, or he made a comment that the cars are so clean out in the Arizona area, no rust. I think that a lot of the ones that you find are very similar to that. I don't know the climate is exactly the same, but you're familiar with the Arizona area. Tell us about the rust condition and everything between Arizona and the cars you find.
The sun is what destroys cars in Arizona. No, they don't have much rust except for the surface rust after it
The
burns the
rubber
paint off.
seals and everything.
Yeah, and then the sun destroys the interior. The town that I like to buy in, it doesn't have extreme heat, it doesn't have extreme cold, it's not close to the ocean. It's like the perfect climate to preserve old cars. And then people put them in their garages as well, and they get even better. This carryall that I sent you pictures of, the 76, it has been painted. They did the interior. They put some diamond pattern on the seats, which, I mean, it could get a lot better. The upholstery could get a lot better, but it's very hard to find a dent side carryall, and especially one this nice. There's 3 or 4 others on my list, but they are so worn out, and so they need paint, they need everything, and there's no way you're going to put one together for the price that this one is selling for.
I got you.
So I do have a customer on it, and everything that he asked me for, the seller provided me pictures of the chassis front to back, the interior, everything under the hood. I mean, it's just as clean as it's going to get for a 1976 model, and
All right.
rare.
Next, the comment section is heating up, and I wish you were able to see this. But Harold Betterson, he had a question regarding an Audi TT. I know not too much about Audi TTs, but Harold, please post your question. And I want to get to AB3 and Adamingo because they have a lot of good stuff too. Okay, so Harold, his front-wheel drive Audi TT is 3 years old and just had a service, 40,000 miles. I was surprised when they told me that his rear brake rotors and pads needed replacing. Not just the pads, and the fronts are fine. Thoughts? Okay, so I have some thoughts, but maybe Max, you want me to answer this one because I
have an idea, but it's a new car, so everything is controlled by computers. If the rear brakes are wearing more than the front, because the car stops more on the front brakes, maybe the parking brake is hanging up and keeping pressure on the pads.
Yeah. So
I don't see how the rear could be
I
wearing.
have run into this, but I'm not familiar on the Audi TTs if it is this way. I've ran into this many times in recent years. Here's how. The parking brakes for the vehicle, they have electric motors for the rear parking brakes. The only difference between, we'd have the same model vehicle, pick it whatever you want, a Chevy, Ford, Volvo, it didn't matter. But a car with the electronic parking brake versus the old cable style, the electronic parking brake, anytime you came to a lot of them, even when you come to a stop, they automatically apply. And then when you take your foot off, they disengage. That's the only thing that I see as a common denominator with the rear brakes wearing out before the fronts. Now, 40,000 miles, at least in the Western New York area, with the salt and everything we get here, is pretty decent amount of mileage for brakes. Typically, we always change the pads on the rotors because I used to like to say, like if you remember the old vinyl records, the metallic or ceramic pads, whichever the manufacturer used, they wear a pattern into the rotors that if you tried putting just the pads on, which we've done, but what happens is the pads have a specific wear mark, almost like a fingerprint. When you put new pads on worn in rotors from other pads, typically causes all kinds of noise. Sometimes you get a pulsation, but typically a lot of noise, and it drove customers nuts, especially if they had paid a few $100 for a pad slap, as we'd call it, and then every time they step on the brakes, they hear a loud squeaking like it's a diesel locomotive. They didn't care for that so much.
I got hit with that. I bought my Durango, my 2000 Durango, when it was about 2 years old. So I took it to the Chrysler dealer. It had 45,000 kilometers on it. Took it to the Chrysler dealer. I figured they know what to do with it, right? Put front brakes on it. So they put front brakes on it. I go to pick it up. I'm heading out the driveway. I put my foot on the brake, and I end up in the middle of the street because they didn't turn the rotors. All they did was put pads on it and just left it like that.
Ugh.
I was always taught that you turn the rotor, you freshen up the rotor when you put new pads on it because it gets glazed over or whatever. I ended up in the middle of the street with my foot, both feet on the brakes
Oh my
at the
God.
Chrysler dealer, from the Chrysler dealer.
Well, that's not a good sign. Anamingo has got a comment. He said that he's in the UK and he just spent 4 hours fixing seized rusty brake calipers, very humid climate. That I can, everything I touch is rusted, and brake calipers especially. Although you can't see it on screen, my finger, I was taking apart a caliper last week and using shop air to push the piston out, and the thing came out like a bullet, and I had my finger in a bad spot. It's not fun. We see that all the time here, but I'm sure, Max, you don't see that in your location specifically, unless are you, where you live, are you closer to the ocean? You get the salt water, so saltwater areas, you definitely would get that, but.
In the town that I live in, yes, we have rust everywhere. There's very few old cars here. It's like an old car desert here because they've all rusted away. I am probably 20 minutes from the ocean if we choose to go there.
Oh wow, that's cool. So Chris Freemeister, am I saying Freemeister? I'm putting a T in his name. Chris Rock. Yeah, we have the same fun. He's in the same climate I'm in. Salt just kills these vehicles. We're getting into the salt season, so everyone's putting their summer cars away for the winter. Those of you out there that want to protect your car from not rotting out, like if you had a Corvette or a Mustang or something like that, you're not driving it in the winter. Although I did see the people of means, but they had all-wheel drive Porsches that got snow tires put on them on a 911, which I couldn't afford to destroy a 911, but some people can. Volvos, that's the unique thing about Volvos that fell in love with, kind of, is you won't see a lot of Volvos rotted out around here, especially when they build a Volvo and it's spot welded together. They take the entire chassis and they put it in a vat that is anti-corrosive, basically solution. So it penetrates in the areas where the vehicle gets spot welded together. So then when they put the top coat on it, base coat, clear coat, all that stuff, wherever it misses, it still has a solution that cures to stop the corrosion from seeping in. So like most vehicles around here with, like, particularly a Dodge Ram. If you took a Dodge Ram that's maybe 5, 6, 7 years old, you'll start to see it rusting around the wheel wells and anywhere on the inside where the body is welded together. You don't get that typically on a Volvo, especially around here. You'll see a 20-year-old Volvo that the body looks perfect on. Similar to a Saturn, but Saturns weren't like that. Saturn just had plastic body panels and the underneath would rot out of them.
I'm just wondering I'm just wondering, Jay, if I should correct you.
Oh, please do. If I said
that,
something incorrect.
The fact that there is no such thing as a 5-year-old Dodge Ram. Ram is its own truck.
Oh, that's true.
I had to correct somebody on the internet today saying that a 65 Chrysler Imperial was his favorite car. Yeah, well, that car doesn't exist either.
Oh, tell me about that, because I always call them Chrysler Imperials. That was the friend of mine. He used to run demo derbies, and that was the car. They actually outlawed him after a while because the car was so strong structurally that nothing could kill it. That was the vehicle to run if you were a demo derby guy. And
that's a bad subject with me, because when people talk about that, I get homicidal. The Imperial was its own brand at the time. It was the top of the line car you could get. It was not a Chrysler Imperial. It was just a straight Imperial. You're not going to call a Mercury a Ford Mercury.
I agree with that. I did not know that. So I am learning something here tonight from you, Mex, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that much.
Yeah, yes, I am that guy on the internet that corrects people like that.
So what is my AMC Rambler American? Because technically AMC was the parent company like General Motors.
I don't think AMC existed in 1959. It was just Rambler.
Well, I hear conflicting reports. And if you go to a parts store and ask for parts for it, I have to say AMC Rambler American.
Well, that's because it's in his book like that, but there was no AMC nomenclature on that car at all. That term was not used until much later, much later.
I agree with that, but I thought as a corporation it was formed together with Nash and who was the third? There was another party, and then they came up, the Rambler, ironically similar to Saturn, to fight imports and the cost of import vehicles because they were getting crushed at that time, post World War II. But it's another subject for another day. We got so Dale Schisler mentioned that the rear brakes wore out quickly when traction control is on.
Oh, that's right. You got to take all that into control. The computer is putting on the brakes when it feels like it.
Yes, it definitely does. I do not care for the start-stop on vehicles. I actually had a customer. This is my favorite stop-start story. A customer, she was going to work. She went to the Tim Hortons drive-thru. Now, Tim Hortons, for you, Mex, you probably don't know, but that's a Canadian. He was a Canadian hockey player who played for the Buffalo Sabres and the Toronto Maple Leafs. He actually died in a Pantera on the QEW, which is the Queen Elizabeth Way. That's the main highway coming from Toronto, heading towards the United States. In a Pantera, he flipped it over and died. But he had a coffee shop, so similar to Starbucks, where there's one on every corner. Around here, there's Tim Hortons Coffee. They're expanding into the Northeast. But she went to Tim Hortons for a coffee on her way to work, and the start-stop kicked on, her 4-year-old Volvo, It didn't have many miles, maybe 50,000. In terms of length of a vehicle, you expect a couple 100,000 miles on it. It was very low. Still under warranty. The start stop kicked on. When it went to start, it wouldn't start because the starter failed. And she was so embarrassed because the 10 people behind her in line trying to get to work and just going for their coffee were now stuck in the drive-through. She was so embarrassed. She called her husband, had her husband meet her there with his truck. She took that truck to work, and she said, "You wait with the car while the tow truck fishes it out of the drive-through." And she immediately towed it into the dealership to trade it in because she was not going to be caught dead in that car again.
Yeah,
So,
it seems to me that the starter gets worked a whole lot more with the start stop.
oh yeah.
It
If
doesn't make any
if you
sense.
think of it this way, this is the math that I did for customers. At least, it's simple math, and it made sense to me. Normally, you'd start your car when you went to work and start your car when you go home. So on average, you might start your car twice a day. I'm just picking an example, but let's say your work included some stop and goes and traffic lights on the way to work. So instead of, 2 times a day, just going to work and coming home, your car might start 10 times a day or 20 times a day, which, if you think about, most cases your starter lasts for 10 years. Now you shorten that up quite a bit because you're starting your car 20,000 times a year or whatever the crazy math could work out to be. I don't think any starter is meant to be used as often as they're using it, and all to save 10 cents in fuel, in my estimation. But I could be completely wrong on that.
On the new Ram truck, don't they have that thing on the front of the engine that starts the engine? Is that what that thing is?
I don't know.
It's
I know.
they call it a hybrid or something, but I think that's the thing that starts the engine.
Yeah, so
With the
I know that Volvo, with their P8 line, which is basically their top engine with the hybrid system built in, the starter was an induction coil on the back of the flywheel. So at one point we had one of those in the dealership for an issue, and the tech line wanted that piece replaced. I have a picture of this car disassembled into 3 bays because the technician had to take the engine out, transmission out, separate the engine transmission, and disassemble this induction ring and then put it all back together. He had the subframe out of it. It was a giant mess. And all of that so that you had the feature, which essentially took out the brushes and the mechanical gears of a normal starter and put basically a big electromagnet on the back of the engine that they use for the hybrid drive system and to start the ICE engine, as they call it now, ICE. I think Tony went into that the other day about ICE, didn't he? Maybe I'm thinking of something else, but we didn't call it ICE back in the day. It was gas engine.
And they did the start stop for emissions or to save gas.
Right.
Which one?
And it may save gas.
Or both.
I don't know how much it saves. I know in terms of the cost. So that starter that I gave, the starter example for a Volvo, wasn't something super extraordinary. I thought it was a 2.5 liter 5-cylinder, like most of the Volvos that I get, which is basically their 4-cylinder base engine, but it's 5 cylinders turbocharged. That starter replacement through Volvo with Volvo parts warranty was $1,700, and that car was less than 5 years old. So that's a tough pill to swallow when you figure that they probably figured in how many times it's going to start. There's some engineer that does some math, and okay, as long as this makes it past the warranty period, you get a car that's 1 year out of warranty, 1 month out of warranty, and then, so sorry, it's your bill, and then you're forced to either fix the car or trade it in and buy something else. It's pretty sad. There's a bunch of comments piling up. I don't know if we want to hit some of them here. Wow, lots of comments. Yeah. I appreciate all these comments.
Do the comments first.
All right. So Shopcat Industries, welcome. He said, can depend on your usage and driving style and brakes bias as set up by the manufacturer. We're talking about brake wear there. We're catching up. I agree with that. Definitely certain vehicles. I know the notorious ones that even you might be familiar with, Mex, the GMW bodies. Around here, so I'm talking early 90s, like Oldsmobile Cutlass, Chevy
Lumina.
Lumina, yes. The calipers would seize in the back. We didn't have that problem with the other style of brakes, so brake bias could have been a factor. Brake design most definitely was a factor in that. Shopcat was mentioning as a dealer turned rear rotors and replaced pads on his Maverick when he traded in. It's pretty noisy for a while because they really, didn't do a good job.
Okay, I'm picturing a 1974 Maverick. Is he talking about the new
truck? I think a new Maverick. Yeah, I would assume Shopcat, is that a new Maverick? Because within the last 2 years, I was at a Ford dealership, and they have the new Maverick, which I'm not a Ford guy. I did work at Ford. I'm not a Ford guy per se. I've owned Fords. Not going to say anything particularly bad or good about them. It's a Ford. However, I will say, if you ever get a chance to go to the Henry Ford Museum, you have to do Greenfield Village. It is absolutely amazing. They took the house and many buildings that Henry Ford was born in or lived, his parents' house, and they moved it to this plot of land that Ford owned. And he took Edison's first power generation plant and they took it apart like brick by brick and then rebuilt it there. He's got a whole entire town built. Chris Rock, you could probably appreciate this if you've ever been to Genesee Country Village. They did this similar thing with houses from this area. They have it set up like it's the 1800s, and you go there and these houses are all set up. They have horses there. In Greenfield Village, you can drive in a Model T from 1909 or 1918, whatever it was. They have a 1934 Ford bus, and they have them driving on the street like a regular town, and you can get rides in them. It's actually super cool. Very cool.
Sleeper Dude actually took his family there, and I saw it. I saw all that on his channel.
Oh, okay. I'm not familiar with Sleeper Dude, but so it's good stuff. If you did see that, it is an awesome. If you ever get a chance to take a ride there or vacation there or flight there.
But when you say horses, that's a no for me. They don't like me and I don't like them.
Yeah, I'm not a horse person either. My brother when I was a kid had horses, and I went for a ride in his back pasture. He didn't have a lot of property, a few acres, but I went for a ride for it, and as soon as I'm trying to make a left turn and the horse was just going straight, I'm like, yeah, no thanks. It's essentially like a car without where the steering shaft broke to the steering gearbox. You have no control, and it's doing what it wants to do. I'm like, I'd rather drive a car with ball tires and no brakes. At least you have a shot.
I went out with with who's now my wife. Our veterinary vet has a property and he had horses there. Yeah, come on out. You can ride the horses. Great. Well, she gets on her horse, no problem. I get on mine. The horse is eyeing me. And then the horse looks at her horse and takes off after her horse, directly at her horse. I jump off that horse. And, oh, no, have a nice day. I'm done.
I'm out.
I want to be able to control where I'm going.
Exactly.
I don't want my car thinking for himself.
Even if it's all worn out and the controls are all worn out, at least in a 4 wheels and a steering wheel, you got a shot,
That's better for me. I know how to drive cars like that.
I'm going through some chat. So Bud Builds, he mentioned that the salt brine that they spread on the roads is horrible. So that I can relate to. We used to work on the plow trucks at the Mack Volvo dealership I worked at for 11 years. That was the New York State DOT trucks that salted the highways and everything. The calcium chloride, I think, is the correct chemical term for, they have these tanks on the dump body that house this liquid. And as they're spreading salt, when the temperature gets below the salt's effective temperature, which I want to say was in the 15 to 20 degrees Fahrenheit range, they would spray this bromide or, spray onto the salt, which then lowered its effective range or temperature at which it could melt the snow for those especially cold days. Now, we don't get too many cold days below 0 degrees Fahrenheit, but we do get them on occasion, typically in January when it's very cold, and that's when they use that salt brine, calcium chloride, I believe it is. And that really, it is so corrosive. It destroys bridges, it destroys cars. They really should come up with a better way. But
I have a question for you snow guys. If you drive your car out on the road and there's salt all over it, does it help at all to clean off the chassis every time you bring the car back?
yeah, I say yes. Any Chris Rock or anyone in Dale is kind of in the Rust Belt. He's on the edge. He's in Pennsylvania, but I say it does. I knew of someone that had, like, I didn't know them personally, but it was a customer. They had basically Ford Crown Vics, like police cars almost, but they were a cab company, and they had basically paid for the ability to take it for car washes all the time at a local business. That's all they do is car washes, called Delta Sonic. And their car, after 10 years, did not have the rust and corrosion like a normal 10-year-old vehicle did. And
Okay.
I felt, after talking with the owner-operator, that was why, because he took it every chance he could to get a car wash to wash off the salt, so that salt water and that rock salt wasn't just sitting on the chassis.
Okay, so how do you keep it off driving from the car wash back to your house?
You don't, but I think that the car wash, when they have that wax, it's spray wax. I think that did a little bit in terms of protecting the chassis. That's my own opinion. There's no scientific proof for that, but I really think that is the only thing that stopped it from rusting.
I saw on one of the detail channels they had this. It's the thing they put under the cars, and it was a rotary thing, and it shot water up into the chassis as you move it around underneath the car. Figure one of those in your house, would be pretty quick, just to go like that, clean your chassis and put the car away. Figure that would work.
So a number of things so I even posted some of the things that I do on my channel for undercoating. They have a few different methods of undercoating. Anything commercially around us has to be something that's biodegradable. So in most cases, they use either a vegetable oil base or they use lanolin-based wax. It does help. It definitely, is better than not having anything, but I don't think it protects it as well. My dad used to get his vehicles undercoated every year. It costs you a few. Now it's probably a couple $100, but it did help maintain the vehicle from rotting out for vehicles that were not protected, but still not. There's certain things, like certain materials, that just wash off. Even the road salt, especially at highway speeds, you're talking road salt that's basically sandblasting the bottom of your car because it's coming off of your tires and hitting the undercarriage, and it's not good for it.
Mm-hmm.
Shopcat swearing at you. It was a Chrysler Imperial from 1926 to 1954. So is that the year that Imperial split from Chrysler?
Yes, I think 1955 it was.
All right,
they made it their own model.
So you're
if
both
they
right.
had an Imperial in 1955. I don't specialize in 50s cars. 59 to 69 is what I know.
So you haven't found me a 59 Rambler American fender that mine's missing. That's what I really need. So, Shopcat, you could be in Michigan. So Shopcat mentioned that he is sipping on a Tim's, as we call it locally, but a Tim Hortons coffee as we speak. So he must be at least in the vicinity because Tim Hortons has branched out. I did see one when I went to my in-laws in Vermont. I swear to God that they have a Tim Hortons there now. They may be into Quebec, but they're definitely in Ontario and New York. All along the New York State Thruway, there's Tim Hortons. They went into Michigan, I believe, and into Pennsylvania. So it's actually a decent coffee, but I like Dunkin' Donuts better. I know it's sacrilegious to say anything bad about Tim Hortons, but I do like Dunkin' Donuts coffee better. Do you even drink coffee?
Not really.
No?
Not really, no.
Oh,
I was
man.
the sales manager at the Chevy dealer I worked at kept saying, you should come here and sell cars on the weekends. I'm like, no, I can't. I don't smoke and I don't drink coffee, so I can't.
That was a 2 prerequisites, right?
No, the reason I didn't is because, like I told you before, the first day I was in there, the used car manager told me, you do not work for the sales department. You do not listen to anything they say. So I figured it would be very difficult for me to go on to that side for the weekend and then come back to my side for the weekday. And it just wouldn't have worked. I would have been able to outsell everybody because I knew the cars inside and out, the brand new cars, the used cars, every one of them on the lot. But I didn't agree with the way they were teaching the salesman. They were telling the salesman, if a customer asks you a question, you say, I don't know, but I'll find out for you. Even if you don't know, I'll find out for you. And then they go in and get the question asked, and then another salesman comes out and they turn the customer to somebody else. I don't like doing that. I don't like games. You ask me a question, I know the answer, I'm going to tell you. And that would have been different than what he teaches all the other salesmen. So I don't think it would have worked out, but I would have sold everybody. I would have sold everybody under the table.
All right, we got a couple more in chat. The chat has been booming, and a lot of it is amongst themselves, which is cool, just like we do for Uncle Tony's Garage Night. I'm under the impression that Shopcat Industries is in Ontario, just based on he's mentioning prices for Canadian goods at Rock Auto.
Yeah,
I'm assuming he's in Ontario.
He's in Canada. I know that for sure.
Oh, you do know Shopcat?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. So I did not know that. So he's probably just across. There's a YouTube channel that I reached out to. Their name is Rusted Rides. They're right in Ontario, but they're north of Toronto. So as the crow flies, for me, about 60 miles, but driving it, you have to go through the city of Niagara Falls into Niagara Falls, Canada, all the way around the end of Lake Ontario in the Great Lakes, right? Past Toronto, and then to get to where they're at, because they mentioned that they were at a car show. There was an event. His wife was even singing at it, but never got up there. I thought that their channel, they just bought a 57 Chevy, and I got that 59 Rambler. I thought that would be an ultimate winter car build-off between the two, but I had the idea with that Subaru and taking the running gear and basically the skateboard of the all-wheel drive Subaru Impreza and sliding that under the Rambler, because the bottom half of the car is pretty rough and it needs driveline work and brakes and steering and you name it. I thought that would be a cool build-off, but they're a little bit.
You up on it?
They're a little bit bigger, and their response to comments is touch and go. And I can appreciate that, because as my channel has grown and more people comment, it is like a full-time job just trying to keep up with responding to everyone.
I only get 3 or 4 comments on any video I put out, so it's easy for me.
Well, for you it is, but you're still growing your channel and your brand.
Yeah.
I can tell you. So, have you ever heard of Faye Hadley?
No.
Well, Faye Hadley is a YouTuber. She's not quite Uncle Tony's Garage caliber, but she's got at least 100,000 subscribers. She's on All Girls Garage on, I don't even know what channel it is. It's one of the major networks for automotive stuff on cable, which I don't have cable either. So I have YouTube, but she's on that show. She's a pretty big name. Yeah, Dale says Faye is good. I want to say almost 100% of the time, if I comment, just saying whatever. Like yesterday, he posted a video. It came right out. I watched it. I posted, "Good morning, Faye." She responded to me, and I always screenshot that and send it to my friend Bree that I worked with for years, just because I find it kind of funny that she always responds. She's kind of pretty cool chick. She's into JDM stuff though. I'm not necessarily a JDM kind of fan. She works at a Toyota dealership. She's a Toyota tech, and she does a lot of stuff with Supras. She has a whole series on building super engines. Now, Max, I don't know. So the inline Chevy 6, I did mention this the other week. The Chevy inline 6, was that an option in older pickup trucks in Mexico? If you had, let's say, a 75 Chevy pickup with a 6-cylinder, did they have inline 6s in them?
Yes, you could get the square bodies. If it was a 1500, it was a 6-cylinder. If it was a 2500, it was an 8-cylinder. So yes, the inline 6 did come in. As a matter of fact, they used the inline 6 in the CK series, the 1988 to 1998 trucks, because there was no V6 to put in them here. There was no engine options. You got the inline 6 for 6, and you got the 350 V8 in the V8 trucks.
What year did they run those to?
From the CK series is the 1998. 1999 they changed the body style a little bit. Right. I think a V6 came in that. Now remember when NAFTA came in, that changed a lot of stuff. They were able to get parts from other countries. Before that, Mexico was a closed place. Everything had to be made in Mexico and assembled in Mexico. Any of the vehicles that were sold here. So that's why there was no engine options. You got the engine that had always been put in that vehicle. There was no inline 6s in those trucks in the US in the CK series. They were all V6s, all 4.3 liter V6s. It shocked me when I first came here and I saw one in a mechanic shop and it had an inline 6, and I said, "Who put that engine in there?" And he's like, "No, that's the original engine for that truck." Really?
Okay, so this is the fascinating. So Shopcat Industries in Alberta, Canada, which is way to the west, I believe. And so he has Tim Hortons by him, but he's in Western Canada, not Ontario. So I was wrong about that. So I apologize for that, Shopcat. Shopcat had mentioned to Dale, because Dale was talking about Sarah Entombed. If he knew what Sarah's secret was. I know what it is. I don't want to give it away. Probably not PC anyways, but yes. The Chevy inline 6-cylinder.
The 292, I think it was.
92?
292.
Oh yeah, 292. That's up from, I think it originally was that designed engine. So that engine design was originally the Blue Flame 6. So that design originated in 1927. If I'm going off memory, I do have a video that I'm putting together for this. Here's the fascinating thing that I found. So a buddy of mine I grew up with, he had a place in Central America. He had like a small house or whatever. And he bought a Toyota Land Cruiser there. And then he drove it all the way back to the Western New York area, through Mexico, and brought it home. He had a problem with the engine, whatever it was. He's like, he reached out to me. He's, hey, you want to change an engine in my Toyota Land Cruiser? I'm like, I know nothing about Toyotas. I didn't want to do the job, basically what it was. But I'm like, I don't know about Toyota engines and all that stuff. I don't want. He's like, no, it's the same engine as your 51 Chevy. At the time, I had a 51 Chevy pickup. I'm like, that's a Chevy inline 6-cylinder. You got a Toyota. Somebody put a Chevy engine in your Toyota? He's like, no, it came like that from the factory. So I was now intrigued. Of course, he was hooking me into doing the job. But the engine that Toyota used from, I believe it's 1949, and I thought, looking it up, it was like the Toyota F engine or Toyota, whatever their model name was for it. It's not the same as they use in the Supra. It was their inline 6-cylinder engine that they used from after World War II, which my understanding is they bought the rights to use it and produce it after World War II from General Motors. But they used that engine up until 2002 in South America. So Toyota used a Chevy engine, that inline 6 engine that we were just talking about that they used in Mexico up into the 90s. They used it until 2002. So 1927, a guy with a piece of paper and a slide rule designed an engine blueprint, and they made that engine up until 2002. I find that fascinating. In fact, my buddy, the same buddy, bought a boat. This is just this summer, and I have this film clip that I'm going to use to splice all that information together. I'm looking for a Toyota Land Cruiser to show the similarities. That Mercruiser engine in this boat that he got that doesn't run and he wanted me to get running, that is the same Chevy inline 6-cylinder engine from my 51 Chevy that was designed in 1927. There has to be something said, and I'm kind of a GM guy, so, if you're a Ford guy, I apologize. There's something to be said about GM engines. Not all, definitely not all, especially the 3.6 V6, but their engine designs are pretty timeless. And in terms of longevity and cost, I don't think you can beat them. What do you say to that, Mix?
Was there any visible differences on the Toyota engine? Did they change the valve cover? Did they put Toyota on it anywhere?
Oh yeah, it had fuel injection versus a carbureted engine and with a points distributor. You know what I mean? So I'm just talking the baseline casting, and if I recall, all the bolts were metric. So, but the casting itself of the engine was similar, if not the same, as the old 51 Chevy engine. That would be an interesting video to do also, if you could swap them like for like. But I would imagine the flywheel, all that stuff would probably be drilled different. A lot of the engines have similar castings, but I think I'm running into that with that Oldsmobile engine that I got too, that 37 Oldsmobile engine. It sounds like they changed the design on the back of the engine and the way it mounted so drastically that it's not interchangeable. Unlike a lot of Chevy small block engines, they're almost virtually interchangeable with any small block. But
yeah,
that's my experience.
Well, in the South American countries were a lot like Mexico. They were closed. They built their own vehicles with the parts that they made inside their country. So they don't change things. When something works, you keep it. And if that engine worked, they kept it.
I like that utilitarian, ideal that you can, why change something that works? I think they change it nowadays because they want to have planned obsolescence because these engines are lasting forever. In terms of the corrosion factor, I can't tell you. We have a couple of pick and pull salvage yards, and you can buy engines from them pretty inexpensively. The one yard has a a fee that you can have them take the engine out, and I've used that lots of times. They have the LS design engine. They're not LSs, like they're cast iron block, maybe aluminum heads, but they're in trucks. So it's not technically an LS1 or an LS3 or anything, but they're the garden variety LS, like I put in that Corvette. They're cheap, and they're still good. The body of the car and the frame rots out around them. You could still run those things for another couple 100,000 miles. It's kind of crazy.
But going back to the subject of government sticking their nose in to the car business, in the South American countries, they didn't have the, oh, let's lower emissions, let's get better gas mileage, let's change this, let's change that, put fuel injection on it so it gets better emissions. They didn't have any of that, so they just continued with what they had. The U.S., you have to change this, you have to get better mileage, so that car companies had to keep redesigning everything to comply with that. It wasn't that way in Mexico or Central America or South America.
Right.
So that's why you get the vehicles that you get from those countries, and with what they are. You know, a lot of the Mexican vehicles fell under that. That AMC, the Mexican AMC company, VAM, was making a call card called the Lerma. It was the front was an American and the back was a Concorde, and they welded them together. So you ended up with this longer car with an extra window, and it was a hatchback. It was a luxury hatchback, basically. And they brought the cars to, supposedly the story goes, and this was told by the employee of VAM that actually went there, that he took the car to AMC in the US, but this was in 1981 when the company was going, down, and showed them the car, and they decided, no, we don't want to build the car. So they claimed that it was too labor intensive to build the car, but he says that he thinks that AMC was jealous that they didn't come up with it first. That was his opinion. But when in 1982 a new president came in to Mexico and basically said, no more luxury anything, everything is going to be austere, no more extras. So they outlawed bringing in luxury items for vehicles from other countries. So no more power windows, no more anything like that. So they had to stop making the Lerma because they didn't have the parts to keep building it. So the government stuck their nose in it, and that car had to die.
That seems to be a trend worldwide a lot, right? So
here's another, not to interrupt, but here's another rule that for whatever reason, I don't know the reason, but the government told each car company, you can only sell 3 models at a time at your dealerships. 3 models. So the Gremlin was introduced for the 1970 model year in the US. Well, it didn't come into Mexico until 1974 because the Javelin was sold until 1973, and there was no room. They were already selling 3 vehicles. They were not allowed to sell a 4th. So they had to wait until the Javelin stopped being produced. Then they were allowed to sell the Gremlin. Why they would do that, I don't know. But it also explains why so many different cars had the Dart name on it at Dodge, at Chrysler, because they were actually able to sell different models and tell the government, they're all Darts. We're only selling Darts, even though they're different cars. So they got around it. But the Dart name was used from the 60s all the way up until the last K car in 1989.
Really, your K cars were called Darts?
Every one of them was a Dart or a Volare, a Valiant Volare.
Volare, so, oh yeah, that name doesn't come up too often. So I wanted to mention, so Mohammed Norden mentioned that Supra is the best. I did want to put his comment up. Welcome to the chat, Mohammed. They're discussing things in chat regarding a purchase 96 Chevy Impala SS. I actually like those. They had the LT1 in it, I believe. I had a Buick Roadmaster that had the LT1. They used it same engine in the Corvette or similar engine. I don't know if it was the exact same, but similar engine in the Corvettes of those years and the Impala SS. I did want to get into your situation. So if somebody went to your website or contacted you through Instagram or however they made contact with you, just walk us through, let's say
the procedure.
Yeah, the whole procedure. You make it pretty simple. There's not a whole lot of hangups, but I think you telling and illustrating the procedure for purchasing a vehicle from Mexico, getting it into the States, can you set everyone's mind at ease with that process? Because I think, people fear the unknown. And just like the first time you work on something or do something you're not familiar with, you're like, oh man, it becomes like overwhelming. But then when you see it done or you do it yourself, you're like, oh, this isn't a big deal at all. So I wanted you to walk us through that process quick, just so everyone has an idea of what it's like and what they expect.
I'm not sure I'm gonna allay any fears, but the procedure that I have to do is, if you tell me what vehicle you want to look at, if it's a specific vehicle, I can talk about that one. Or if you say, I want a Volkswagen Beetle, I can make a page for you that has 10 of them on there, and you can choose whichever one you like, different colors, whatever. I've done that. I have a page right now that has all of the carryalls on it, and I have a page with all the Ramchargers on it, the 99 and 2000 Ramchargers. So when somebody says, I'm interested, hey, go look at this, tell me which one you want me to give you information on. And when they pick out a vehicle, I will contact the seller of that vehicle, and generally they work with me. But I've had lots of problems with sellers that do not want to give me pictures. I sent a message to a guy with a Toyota truck, an 84 Toyota 4-wheel drive truck. Can you send me more pictures? He says, where are you? I told him the town I'm in. He says, find one closer to you. That was his answer. He doesn't want to deal with anybody outside, and he lives in a tiny little town that I've never heard of, way out in the middle of nowhere. So basically he's telling me he doesn't want to sell the truck. I said, okay, fine, that's up to you. But
I think you get a lot of that no matter where you are, though, right? Because
yeah.
I've seen that just the other day. I had a conversation with somebody, posted something that I was a Volvo in my realm of things to, that I like to play around with. And I sent him a message, and I'm like, and the response back was so rude and whatever. I'm like, yeah, forget it.
Yeah, you don't want to deal with somebody like that.
You'll see the same car for sale a year later, though, too.
Right, funny. Exactly. So let it be for sale. It's up to him. But there's a carryall, a really nice 78 carryall with round headlights for sale. And since April, I have sent messages asking for the real price and more pictures, and they never respond. But it's such a nice vehicle. People are always asking me, how about this one? How about this one? I should just take it off the page. But anyway, with the procedure is, when we decide on a vehicle and I have the seller sending me everything, like for example, with the red carryall that you didn't show, but you should, because it's an amazing vehicle.
I thought I did.
He asked for pictures of the chassis. He asked for pictures under the hood. He asked for everything, and the seller sent me 12 pictures of the chassis plus 5 videos of the chassis underneath. He wants to sell the vehicle, so I sent everything to the buyer, and he said, okay, I like it, give me your references. So I gave him Jason's phone number, and they're going to talk this weekend. When we get through all that, then I calculate the price, which includes travel, because I have to go get it, and then I have to bring it back, the transport, which is either, on some of these vehicles I drive it, and some of them I put them on a transport truck and bring them to my residence, which is 8 hours from the border, and then I will put it on a car trailer and I will bring it to the border myself. I will not drive a Volkswagen Beetle 10 feet, let alone 8 hours.
What do you have in terms of a tow rig, if you don't mind me asking it?
I put a car trailer on the back of my Durango. my 2000 Durango 5.9. I think I'm having transmission trouble, but that's another story. But once I get the total, the vehicle needs to be paid for. And I know that that's where a lot of people drop off. No, I'm not sending money. I haven't seen the vehicle. But it's just like buying the vehicle in Japan, where you send the company money and they'll put it on a boat and it'll be delivered to Florida. Um, it's the same process. The vehicle needs to be paid for before it gets to the border. The vehicle will be brought to my location, either by transport or with me driving it. And here we will go over whatever needs to be gone over. We'll go through the brakes. We'll look at the brakes, whatever needs to be done. The buyer will pay for the repairs, but it's really not much. To like Jason ordered a new set of tires, and the tires over there were going to be like 15,000, the equivalent of 15,000 pesos, and they were 10,000 here for brand new tires for the truck. So the prices are a lot better here with most things. So we go through it. For example, a 1999 Ramcharger that I bought for the customer, we put it up on the rack, and the upper A-arm bolt wasn't even hand tight. The nut was just loose. You could turn it with your hand. So these are things that there's no way you can know when you're buying the vehicle. You just have to check them out. I mean, you can look at a lot of stuff, but some stuff just gets by you. So just make sure it's in the nicest of condition for when we deliver it, because the person that's buying it is probably going to drive it home or drive it to a transport company or whatever. So I just want to make sure that it's in the best of condition. The buyer is going to need to contact the customs agent to give that guy all of your information so he can prepare the documents. And he says he needs 36 hours to prepare the documents. And then I meet either the buyer can come into Mexico to retrieve the vehicle at the hotel, which the hotel is on the same road as the border crossing, so it's not like driving all over town or anything. And another thing that's important is that Nogales is the calmest border crossing that you're going to find. If you compare it to Tijuana, Tijuana is horrible. If you compare it to Ciudad Juarez, where you would cross over into Texas, it's calm, but not that calm. And we're not even going to talk about going farther, because that's a no-go zone for me. I will not go into that area over there, which most people won't.
All right. So on the
Yeah,
subject of the carryall, hopefully everyone can see the carryall that I got.
Can you click through the pictures?
Yeah, well, I got a few pictures pulled up, but I wanted them to get an overall sense of what it looked like. So to me, this would be like a full.
The rear is the most interesting part, because that was the custom made part.
So let me click on that. So you can see the back of it. It looks very similar to a barn door style, like a Ford Excursion, so to speak. It's about the same size.
All custom made by the conversion company.
That's right from the bodybuilder, what we'd call a bodybuilder, at least in the truck sense, that they built the panels for this from scratch, but it matched the body lines of the truck. If you look right down the side of it.
Well, the quarter panels are from the pickup. They just added the top part.
The top half with the glass and everything. Almost like a conversion van or something like you would.
Yes.
Similar.
The negative thing about this is it has no seat belts. The truck that I delivered to Jason, when we got it back here, we had to install seat belts in it so we could be safer going the 12-hour trip to the border. The floor in the back is raised about a foot, and then they have the rear seat sitting on top of that. That's to make room for the gas tank and everything else. Well, that doesn't leave any room for the seat belt, the retractor. So the mechanic here had to custom install the seat belt, and it left it a little bit loose. It doesn't retract all the way because it is 1 foot higher. He got the seat belts out of an extra cab truck of the same vintage, but in that truck it was mounted all the way down at the floor, the retractor, so the seatbelt would go all the way back. Well, in this one it was 1 foot higher. So where are you going? Are you leaving already? Excuse me, Jay.
Yeah, that's no problem.
Well, because we have to go to the meat store. Oh, okay.
You know what happens when the boss.
So, yeah, so we had to put the seatbelts in, and it was not easy to do that. It cost about 3,000 pesos with the parts and the mechanics labor and a lot of drilling. And in that particular truck, we found that there was a molded piece that was like the on the sides, you know, around the windows and all that stuff. And it was one piece from the front doors all the way around the back. It was just one piece. I don't know how you would get it out of the truck if you needed to, but because this truck also had barn doors. But this red one is a 2-door. Jason's truck had an extra door on the right side. So the piece went from the driver's door all the way around the back, and then to the edge of that third door. So I don't know how they made that piece to fit, but there was a lot of rivets that he had to take out, a lot of screws he had to take out just to get behind there, and then he had to find some support behind that to bolt the seatbelts into. It was a mess, but there were no seatbelts from the factory in any of these Ford trucks, even into the mid 80s in Mexico. It just wasn't a thing. People didn't think about it. So I like to have seatbelts. So
Oh, me too.
Yeah,
I don't feel right driving without them. You know.
but it's just something that we have to deal with here. The 74 Dart that I bought, no seatbelts from the factory. It has the indentation for the retractor because the car was stamped with it, you know, just like every other Dart
Right.
ever made, but they just didn't put it in. So I have lap belts in the car, but I didn't put the shoulder belts in it. Yeah, I
I
got
had to.
stopped by the police for it. Hey, you don't have any seatbelts on, and I just pointed down at my crotch. It's right there.
That was in Mexico.
Yeah, they'll stop you if you don't have your seatbelt on. But I said it's right there. The car did not come from the factory with it, which means I don't have to have them on, but I have to have a seatbelt, so I put it on. I put them in myself. I installed them. But
Yeah.
of course, the quality of what you buy now, that the seatbelts that I put in the back for my son, they have disintegrated into nothing. It's just fibers on the back of my back seat now that the seatbelts have disintegrated into nothing. It's just unbelievable.
Well, I don't think we have the climate for that necessarily, but I did have to change out the seatbelt retractors on the one Jaguar I had. I had a '88 Jaguar, and the seatbelt retractors were all jammed up. And I bought a set of aftermarket replacement seatbelts online, and of course they're made probably in China, and yeah, they're definitely not that quality. You know,
Well,
definitely not.
the sun is so intense here that it destroys everything, and that's probably what did it, is the sun. But seat belts should be made of a material that do not disintegrate into fibers on the back seat of my car.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
supposed
exactly.
they're supposed to keep my son in the seat when he's in the car.
Right, because of the integrity of the material, it shouldn't be degraded by, sunlight. You would think,
By the car just being parked. No,
right?
it shouldn't. But that's basically the procedure. I lose a lot of people, you know, with the payment up front, but any potential client, they want to talk to the buyer of the green Ramcharger, the Volkswagen Beetle that I sold to Adrian in Tennessee, or to Jason. You know, the
So if
money is not the motivating factor for me. Is me getting these vehicles into the hands of people that will take care of them, because
right,
these are daily drivers here still. That truck, that red truck, that red carryall, it's still being used. There's another carryall that's the 78 model. It's beige and green, and the owners of that have a store that in Mexico City. So the wife drives the truck 600 kilometers to Veracruz, the port of Veracruz, every week to get their products, and drives it back. No power steering or anything in the truck, just like this red one has no power steering. But she makes that trip every week. The truck is used every week, which is one that you want. You don't want one that's been sitting around for 25 years. Then you have to rebuild the whole thing. This truck is used every week. You can get in it, start it, drive it as far as you want to go with no problems. And that's the kind of trucks that I like to buy.
I wanted to point out Chris Rock there has a comment that Mex's hate for VW Beetles saddens him to no end.
I don't hate them. I just don't want to drive the Beetle 24 hours like I did with that truck.
You had a 24-hour drive? Oh,
it was
geez.
27 hours, actually. It was, no,
Oh,
29 hours. The truck that I bought for Jason, now I do more to sell a vehicle than anybody I have ever known.
I would say.
It took me 3 buses to get to where the truck was. I took a bus to Guadalajara. It was an overnight bus. That was fine. I rented a hotel room. The next morning early, I took a bus to Morelia in Michoacan. The truck was in a tiny town in the middle of the forest in Michoacan. And if any of you in the chat has watched Breaking Bad, you'll recognize the names Michoacan and Guanajuato. Those are the cities that they mentioned in that. Those are the states that they mentioned in that show as where all the drug cartels are. So I took the bus from the big city in Michoacan to the small town, which was called Ciudad Hidalgo. Now, never been there, don't know anything about it. The bus, we had to go through the forest, and it was a curvy road through the forest. And I guess this bus driver was very familiar with the road, and he didn't really slow down for the curves. So the bus is leaning to one side, then leans to the other side, then leans to the other side.
Oh,
So
man.
I told my wife, find a way out of here where we don't have to go through that. So I arrive and I get I send a message to the seller, and I thought he was going to come over to the bus station, which was no bigger than a convenience store. Come over to he says, just come over to where we are. He says, get on this bus and go. I said, I am done with buses. I've already been on 3 buses, no more buses. So I took a taxi over to where he was. We did the deal. I drove it a little bit. We did the deal. I sent videos and pictures to Jason. I said, okay, it's got rust right here. It's got this, it's got that. You make the decision. I am completely transparent with everything. I over communicate with everything. A buyer is going to get sick of all the messages I sent and everything. There's no secrets. There's nothing. So I said, hey, is this the one you want? He says, yeah, fine. Because it had a little bit of damage in the front that he needs to fix, and it had a place inside the driver's door that he's gonna have to cut out and repair the rust. Okay, fine. So we make the deal. I pay for it, get all the documents and everything. We take off down the road, stop at a gas station because I want to take the first video of it. All that stuff. My wife and I hadn't had anything to eat all day.
Oh, that's
so yeah,
playing with fire there.
Yeah, so I leave the truck at the gas station there, but it could be a danger for me because if somebody has a set of keys for the truck, they can come and steal it back.
Right.
So I get under the hood and I want to take the coil wire with me. Well, some genius mechanic moved the coil from the top of the engine to the right-hand firewall, took a long coil wire, hooked it up, then took the wires that connected the coil to the engine to make it to the distributor, and wrapped it all with electrical tape. So I couldn't take the coil wire off because I would have to disconnect the wires and everything. So I opened up the cap and I took the rotor. And yeah, and of course I dropped it under the middle of the truck. It landed right in the middle of the truck. So, so we walked down the street because she said, hey, there was a chicken place down here. We walked down the street, left the truck there, walked down the street, get to the place. It says, because she saw a grand opening. It says grand opening in a week. It was closed.
So you walked that way and then didn't get to...
So no food the whole time. Fill the truck up with gas, and we start heading out. And she's got the GPS there, and she says, okay, well, we'll go this way. Well, as it turns out, it was the exact same road that we were on. Now I have a truck that I know has 13-year-old tires that are cracking, and it's raining. It's raining the whole time. The whole time we were driving that truck, everywhere we went, it started raining, without exception. Every place we went. So we're driving through this forest, all these curvy roads, and it's going up and down. You're going down and come into a curve. And I don't have the nerve that I used to when I was younger. So I would slow down and I would downshift. And this is the granny gear transmission.
Oh yeah,
So I
first.
only had second, third, and fourth to deal with. So I would downshift into third or back down into second, and I would take the curve. It took us 5 hours to drive from there back to the hotel. But on that trip, I've never had a harder time finding gasoline out on the road. And this is a major road. This is a major highway and going through there. So now keep in mind that Michoacan is a hotbed of drugs, drug cartels,
Oh,
everything else.
geez.
And the truck has plates from Michoacan. Okay. He left the plates on it for me. So I'm going and I see this there because all the roads are toll roads. We have to pay the toll. So come up to the toll road and they have these men in black, well, men and women in black that stop you. They're either military or police or whatever. They're stationed all over the country. You can't just drive around Mexico and because they're going to stop you and investigate and everything. So I pull off to the side. The head guy asked me to pull off to the side. He's an older guy. Usually the younger guys are the ones that do all the looking and everything. So I get out and we're always really nice. There's no problems with us, because they're looking at us just like they're looking at the truck. They're looking at if we're
Oh,
worried, or, all that our
body
attitude.
language, yeah, how you
Right.
carry yourself.
So I come back and I open the rear door for him and he's checking the floor. Maybe we hid drugs in the floor or something. No, it's just a piece of wood and has some styrofoam or whatever. I don't, it was whatever the, oh shit, they're going to deliver something to my house soon.
Oh,
so, so it's just a wood floor and he's checking it. And then my wife comes over and, we all start talking and he says, so where are you going? Oh, I'm going to Sinaloa. I'm going to Los Mochis. And he's looking around. He's like, I am from Los Mochis. And we're so far away. We're 17 hours away from here. He's like, I'm from Los Mochis. And my wife asks him, so what area are you from? And he tells us where he's from. And my wife turns to me and looks at me and says, that's where they crashed your car. And this is another story, but my wife and I were driving my 63 Plymouth Savoy. We were going to look at a Dodge truck out in where I know I shouldn't have been. It's a really bad area. And I turn on the left turn signal on a two-lane road. I go to make the left turn, and this pickup truck comes on the wrong side of the road and just smashes the front of my 63 Plymouth up. And
oh,
the driver gets out, and he comes back, and oh, my father's a police officer, about all these excuses. Well, at the same time, 3 other guys get out of the truck holding AK-47s in their
oh,
hands. So
the shakedown.
no, they were cartel members. And you would think I would feel scared, right? No, I was more angry than anything else. I was so angry. But anyway, so the guy that I went to go look at the truck, he came over and he's talking to the guy, okay, fine, whatever. And I have his phone number. This was on Father's Day a year ago, and he never paid me anything. But that story is not over yet. I was able to drive the car back. The front bumper's bent, and the front fender was hit, and the whole front end was pushed over. But the car still ran and drove fine. So right where that happened, the head guy in black, he was from that exact same area. So my
That is ironic.
my wife tells him the story, and oh, all great. So by the time we left, we were all friends. But the gas gauge on this truck was like, when I filled up, it was hovering a little bit over 3/4. And it's a Ford, right? So you never believe the gas gauge.
You can't trust it.
Oh, it's like it's getting right near a quarter of a tank. So that could either be empty or could be full. Who knows? So on the GPS, it says, well, there's a gas station like 90 kilometers up the road. And I'm looking at the gas gauge. Well, I don't know how much gas left is in it. So I asked him, are there any gas stations around here? There has to be something. People live here. He says, yeah, if you get off this little curve here and take the bridge and go 5 kilometers down that way, there's a gas station there. I said, well, thank you very much, because I was not going to make it to that gas station. So I filled up. We got back and paid a smaller toll, actually, than we would have if we just went straight through. So we get to that gas station 90 kilometers down. It was a brand new gas station that hasn't opened yet. They were closed.
I thought you were going to tell me when you went to that other gas station you pointed to, they weren't open, but that
Oh,
is
that was fine. They were servicing the whole area because they were the only gas station there. But if I wouldn't have been stopped by those guys and I just went through the toll booth without talking to anybody and filling up, we wouldn't have made it because there was no gas station after that for a long, long time. So
right. That's
I don't understand why there's no gas stations out there. But because we got pretty low on gas a few times, so we finally got back to the hotel, parked it, raining the whole time. But the seller of the truck did for me because I told him I was coming from far away. He replaced all the fuel lines in it. He supposedly did a tune up, and he replaced the windshield wipers for me. I didn't ask him to do that, but he did it. I don't know. Maybe he can see the future, and it was going to rain the whole way back.
yeah, right.
But yeah, so it was raining even when we got back to town. It was raining, so we parked the truck, and the hotel is right next to a big mall. So we the first time we had eaten, it was like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night all day, and we went in there and got some ribs and wings and whatever at Army Wings Army, whatever. So that was that day. So that was 5 hours driving it.
So you're telling me they have buffalo wings in Mexico?
Well, yeah, it's a big mall. They have you could find wings everywhere. There's wing places everywhere. It's unbelievable how many places serve wings.
Because
So
I'm in the city that invented chicken wings, just so you know.
yeah, well, I think
In
chickens
fact,
invented chicken wings.
well, that's true, but if you look at the back of a bottle of Frank's hot sauce, it tells you the story of the Anchor Bar in Buffalo, New York,
Oh, okay.
and how wings were invented. And when we went to Ireland, we were at some little store in the middle of nowhere between Dublin and the first town we were in, and I was looking through I'd like to see what they have for sale, how different it is, and they had all the same stuff we have here at home, and there was a bottle of Frank's hot sauce there. I'm like, we're not even in Buffalo, we're far from it. But
That's nice, but I don't eat my wings with any hot sauce. It's on just the straight barbecue sauce. But so
I like barbecue wings.
the next morning, the reason I stay at that hotel is because they have an excellent breakfast buffet, and it angered me that the night before when I stayed there, I had to leave at 3 o'clock in the morning to get on the bus to go out there, and I missed the buffet. But
Ah,
anyway, so it was a great buffet that we had, and got in the truck and heading out of town. The truck had power, but I knew it should have more power. So we're heading out of town, and right ahead of us, this truck paint cans fall off this truck. Pink paint
oh,
covering the highway, covering the
oh,
highway. So like 10 cars ahead of me, I see this. So these 10 cars just roll right through this paint, and the paint got all over their vehicles. So I had to do the same thing and rolled right through this paint. And the next stop, I sent a picture to Jason. I said, I hope you like pink tires because you got them.
Dale, Dale's just mentioned MX Spec, the oh boy, what an adventure. Basically,
Oh,
I
the
think,
adventure is not over yet.
oh geez,
So about 3 hours later, the it's not exactly the smoothest highway. So I noticed that when I went over a bump, the engine cut out a little bit right at that split second. So that could not have been a fuel issue. It had to be electrical. So we get down, we start going down this hill, and the thing just cuts out completely. No more power. I'm putting the gas down just, like that. No more power. Luckily, I was able to find because this is there's no shoulders here. So luckily, I was able. It was like a bridge or something, and I was able to pull off just after the bridge, and gave me enough room to get off and pop the hood and see what the hell was going on. So I get under there and I start, and a good mechanic would have made one adjustment and then tried it, and then made another adjustment and then tried it, just to see what it was. But no, not me. I noticed that the coil was loose, so I tightened the coil down, and then I moved the distributor around a little bit, for the timing, and then I adjusted the carburetor all at the same time because the screws were seven turns out. The fuel air mixture screws were 7 turns out, and they're only supposed to be like 1.5, right? So I make all these adjustments and I'm trying to start it and everything, and I finally get it. You disappeared.
Oh, I know. I'm
Oh,
playing with
okay,
something. I
okay,
was trying to change your avatar to the one I
okay.
sent you.
So I'm trying all this stuff, and I finally get it to fire again, and we take off, and it's running better than ever. And the proof was when I had to pass a vehicle, which I usually don't do, but I had to pass one, and I put it to the floor, and the thing just took off. So I had plenty of power all that time. I think the problem that I completely lost power was the coil was moving around so much, and the wires were coming loose, or it was grounding out or something. But they just had it lightly screwed to the fender well, so I screwed it all the way down so it wouldn't move, and messing around with everything else. But the carburetor really wanted to be 7 turns out. It wouldn't run right unless it was 7 turns out. So when I got back here, the mechanic rebuilt the carburetor and put new jets, because they put the smallest jets in there, which was limiting how much fuel can get in there. So he
Right.
put some other jets in there, which gave it even more power when we took it to the border. But yeah, that 8 hour trip again took 12 hours on the way home. But I
So,
did stop to see my son, and every place we went, it started raining. We went to see my son, have dinner with him. It started raining on us again.
well, at least you had good wiper blades.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, the guys that ran into you and came out with AK-47s. You weren't
Uh-huh.
scared, but I
No.
would imagine that at least I would be scared of your wife after taking her on that long of an adventure and almost, not making it back because of fuel and drivability thing you had to fix. At what point were you afraid that your wife was going to, cause you harm? Because I know mine would
No,
probably
no,
strangle
we
me with
we
the seat.
work very well together. We work very well together. She handles the music and the GPS on the trip, and I drive, and whatever the thing needs, if she needs to, get under the hood, if I need her to hold something, she's we work very well together.
That's awesome.
I wouldn't want to do it with anybody else.
No, I definitely need a good co-pilot, no doubt, no doubt. Uh, so we're at the 8 o'clock hour, which is you're at 5 your time. I was
Yes.
going to cut it at this point, unless you have anything else you want to cover. I think we covered the basis of everything we talked about.
Should I tell one more story about the guys in black? Three.
Yeah,
There.
absolutely.
Okay. There on the trip to my house, we got stopped. There was 3 stops. The second one, I got out of the truck. The head guy comes over and he speaks to me in English. And he's like, "Where are you going?" I told him where I'm going. It's like, I told him I just bought the truck, and we're driving it because it had plates on.
From where it
Oh,
came from.
yeah. And so he then asks me, um, "Where's your money?" I said, "What money?" He said, "Where's your money? Take everything out of your pocket." So I took everything out of my pockets. I had like 800 pesos. And he says, "Well, how are you going to get home? You're how are you going to get home with just that?" I said, "Oh, my wife has the money for the tolls." Because he's looking at me. I'm white, right? I just
Yeah.
bought a vehicle in Mexico. He thinks I have a load of cash in my pocket, but no, I'm Mexican. I have to document where every peso goes. All money stays in the bank account. I don't deal in cash. It's not allowed. Our tax department wants to know where every peso goes. I have to document everything. I have to pay taxes on everything I do. So no, I'm not going to be carrying cash around Mexico. And because he thought, because people do come to Mexico, Americans will come to Mexico and they'll bring a bunch of cash, and he was wanting to steal it.
Ah,
So
okay.
and so then he says, "Well, give me your ID." So I gave him my voter ID, which is our official federal ID here, and my driver's license. He says, "Where's the other IDs?" I said, "What are you talking about? What other IDs would I have?" And he was expecting a US passport, I guess. So no, this is my ID. And when he couldn't find anything with me, he dismissed me. He walked away and put his hand behind him, like dismissing me, like that, like go away. That's the first time
Wow.
I ever ran into anybody like him. But no, I'm not going to
But
carry cash around. I'm not going to accept cash to sell a vehicle, and I'm not going to pay in cash for a vehicle. I do a bank transfer, so everything is above board. Our tax department can see everything that is going on. This is a business for me. I'm not just out there, doing things. This is
right,
everything has to be above board. And being that I live in the interior of the country, I'm not allowed to have a dollar account. I let me explain how the payment would work, which I didn't get to. My bank, I have an account with a bank here, and my bank has an account with Deutsche Bank in the US. So the payment would be a domestic wire inside the US, bank to bank. And when they receive the dollars, they credit my account here in pesos. So the dollars never cross into Mexico, because once that happens, then the US government will investigate and the Mexican government will investigate, and then that'll tie up the transaction more time, because then they're going to say, hey, you need to prove where you got the money, and where did this money come from, and everything else. So in this situation, the dollars stay in the US, and then they just credit my account here with the pesos, and then I go and buy the vehicle. That's the
right.
way it has to be done. So
Dale Dale Schisler asked when we were mentioning that your wife may hurt you for the putting her through all that, and you were speaking so highly of your wife. Dale just commented that she's in the room, isn't she, Max?
she's walking around. She's preparing to go out to
Ah,
have fun with
smart
friends.
man,
But no, it's
smart
no.
man.
We since the beginning we have done every trip together. Even though she does have a job, she lies to them and says she's sick when we go out and get a vehicle, because she has to. They won't let her take time off unless she asks for it like 4 weeks in advance for
Ooh,
vacation time. So she has to do that. But I would not be able to go do this with anybody else, because if I get frustrated and I yell at her, she knows it's not serious, or she yells back. Another person is not going to take that the right way, because it does get frustrating out there sometimes. GPS is not a for sure thing. I don't trust it at all. I like to know where I'm going, and
oh,
I don't trust it at all.
yeah, GPS can definitely lead you astray. Peter King had a question, or so he had a comment. So basically, Mexico converts your U.S. dollars. So essentially,
No, no, Mexico is not converting anything. It would be a domestic wire from a US bank account to a US bank account. The dollars stay in that US bank account. My bank here will credit my account with pesos, the equivalent amount of pesos. So the dollars are never, if you do an international wire from the US to Mexico, first of all, it's going to take a long time to get here. And then the the US government that has control over all dollars, if you send US dollars from the United Kingdom to France, the US government has dominion over that transaction, because it's US dollars. You do not want to do that. We do a domestic wire, and when my bank sees the wire reflected in their account, they credit me here with the pesos, because I'm not allowed to have a dollar account here. If I was at the border, I would be able to. But
I gotcha.
with the
Okay, and
money laundering laws here, I'm
right.
not going to be able to. I'm trying to set up shipping from Mexico to Jacksonville, Florida, where the client could pick up their vehicle in Jacksonville, Florida, at the same place that the people that buy Japanese cars pick them up there. But in order to do that, I have to get signed up with a Mexican customs agent, and I tried to do that, and he gave me this huge list of what I have to comply with, and I didn't understand most of it. But every transaction, every vehicle that I send out of here, I am going to have to prove where every peso came from to buy that car. I have to document everything under the money laundering laws to show them that the money came from a clean place. It's going to be very difficult to do, and time consuming, but I'm going to have to do it to make it easier for people, at least on the East Coast, to pick up their vehicles.
That's
I
that's
I I also have a customer in Australia that is working with me. He said after the first of the year, he wants me to start collecting vehicles to ship to him in Australia. And it's going to be the same thing. I'm going to have to show that I got the money from him into my business account. And then I paid out this guy for this amount. And then, show where everything went.
That's kind of amazing to me. And this, I don't want to get too political, but just an observation with all the means that you have to go through with the traffic stops and everything else, that they still have such a problem in Mexico in general with the cartels and everything. When they put in these fire stops, I would call them, you can't, like, if I go buy a car around here, I'm paying with cash.
Right.
Because cash is king.
Right.
My neighbor, he's got some higher end stuff when he sells it. They bring a certified bank check and all that stuff. But I sell and buy in cash. That way, it's cash is king, as they say. At any rate, even with all those fire stops in place, they have an issue with cartels. The cartels are still able to operate, which is crazy
Right.
to me.
Right. But you're assuming that these guys in black are looking for cartel members. They don't want to mess with the cartels. That would be very bad for them. So it's only honest people that have to go through there and comply with all this.
There
Now,
you go. Yeah.
I figured, like with the '99 Ramcharger, it had plates from Nueva Leon, which is way in the north part of the country, in a different part of the north part of the country. I figured that I was going to get stopped pretty much with that one, as well as the last one with Michoacan. Well, the '99 Ramcharger is the kind of truck that cartel members would drive. So they wave you through. They don't want to deal with you. With when I took the green Ramcharger, no, it was the carryall. I got to from my house. I go through 6 military stops to get to the border. The first one, the guy looks in my window, says English. I said yes, and he said, "Go ahead." That's it. That was the whole check process on that truck. That was it.
Peter King's got a question. Could you accept a PayPal transfer for a vehicle?
I wouldn't trust PayPal. They could hold the money indefinitely and never pay me, plus the 1% that they charge, or however much they're going to charge on a transaction that big. It would just be too much. It would just be too much. The wire is the safest way because there's documentation on both ends where the money went, who the money went to. There's proof of everything all the way down the line.
Fair enough. All right.
I've had people. I'm going to bring cash to the border. So, well, you're not buying a car from me because I don't deal in cash. Cash will be stolen. Cash will be stolen if not by somebody that just saw you get paid. It'll get stolen by the police if they stop you. It'll get stolen by the one of the military checkpoints. It's impossible for me to touch cash.
It's something I didn't know. It's good to know too. Like I said,
yeah. Only the honest people have to comply with the law. But
how long did it take? How long did it take you to assimilate to the rules and knowledge of how things work there?
I have been learning over the past 5 years or so about this business. I've done years of researching the vehicles. I've talked to people. I need very soon. I have to go to an attorney and set up the corporation that is going to be, handling this. I need to get an accountant because we pay 16% sales tax on absolutely everything. You rent your house, you're paying 16% sales tax on that. Everything you do is 16% in food. Everything you buy. So you need to get this document that says that the expense was for the business, and then you could take that off your taxes and get that money back. So I need to learn all that, how to do all that, because there's huge expenses in this where this business is concerned with the hotels and the food and the gasoline. and everything else that goes into, and the repairs, everything else that goes into this business. It's not just
Oh,
buying the vehicle and delivering it. There's a lot
right.
of expenses in between, because the trip up north, there's a lot of gasoline. There's we have to eat. We have to stop in at some point and eat somewhere. There's the hotel when we get to Nogales, and that's a one night thing. And then we have to get on a bus and come back for a 12-hour trip on a bus.
Oof. In the comment section, Jay Jose said this is so interesting, and I agree. And thank you for that
I
comment.
appreciate that. It's, people are scared of Mexico. The media shows only the worst, and I will admit that 2 hours from me, which is where my son lives, there are two cartels fighting it out, and there's bodies showing up every day that get dumped from whatever they happened the night before. He's in medical school right now, and he was in his house for a month taking classes in his second year because nobody was out on the street. It was just too dangerous. And my wife explained the whole thing to me. It was something about the head of the cartel being tricked into getting on a plane, and they flew that plane to the United States instead of to where he was supposed to go. And they arrested him when he got off the plane. The U.S. arrested him when he got off the plane. And the one cartel that he was head of is attacking the other cartel that set the guy up. And it's just a whole mess. But he is now back in school. He says, there's less problems now, but it's affecting what I do as well, because there's stories about them stopping buses as they go by and robbing everybody on the bus. And they throw these things out on the highway to pop your tires, and then they'll rob you or kidnap you or whatever, just going past on the highway. So I have to get all the correct information on that, if that is actually happening. And if it is, find a way around that, which is not easy because there's only one highway going south, and that's Highway 15. So I don't know how, I'm
Not the
I'm gonna I'm
same. Not the same 15 that goes into Vegas, is it?
no, it goes a different direction. It's going north and south, not east and west. So it's the main highway that goes all the way down to the capital. So I have to figure out a way to get around that. So, if I put the vehicle on a transport in Guadalajara, they'll bring it over and they'll deal with all that. But like with that red carryall, they want double the space. They want to charge me twice because it's such a big vehicle. They say it's going to take up 2 spaces.
Mm.
So, and then I would need to fly back to my town, which is not easy to find a plane in here. It's not easy to find a plane out of here to get anywhere without going, like the one airplane we like to use, their hub is in Monterey, and every plane goes there first, and then we'd have to sit there for 6 to 9 hours before getting another plane somewhere else to where we really need to go. And it's just frustrating, the logistics of this, because we would get on, huh?
Monterey, Mexico, not Monterey, California.
Right.
So,
Monterey is the city in the state of Nuevo Leon. So
gotcha.
to go to Guadalajara, we would get on the bus at like 8 o'clock in the evening, and we would get off the bus over there after sleeping on the bus all night at 8 o'clock in the morning and be ready to do whatever we need to do. Buy the vehicle, whatever, rent the hotel room for the night, and head off in the morning. And it was the perfect setup. So now we have to worry about, on the way back, is anything going to happen passing that town? So we figured that we are going to need to rent a hotel room in Mazatlan so we can go past Culiacan in the daytime, not at night. We're not going to go past there at night anymore, because that's when all the bad things happen. So, are you ready to go? You can mute yourself, I don't want to mute myself. That's rude.
Hi, okay. Mrs. Mexican Spec. Tell her we said hello.
Everybody's saying hi. Hi. You got all the stuff? Okay. We had stuff coming in on a delivery. Lucky she was here to answer the door, because I was sitting here with headphones on. But there's a lot of logistics in what I do, and a lot of thought goes into it to keep us safe. That's the thing. We need to be safe in everything we do.
Oh, absolutely.
Because there's a lot that we have to deal with.
But you're going to tell us the good sides of being in Mexico.
Oh,
I've never
the
visited.
the place that I live, like I said, it doesn't cost very much to live here, and there's no problems here at all. I can get in my truck. I can at 1 o'clock in the morning go pay my phone bill or whatever. It's very, very calm here. Nobody bothers anybody. It's the generally when when they're not fighting, the cartel members are instructed to not bother the general public. It's very bad for business. It brings attention to them, and they don't want that. So they just leave everybody alone. So
Just another comment. King Long Swipe said that Mexican Spec sounds white as you know what.
well,
So,
he's right. He's right. I am.
know.
People when I speak Spanish here, people say I have an American accent. And I'm like, what accent? What are you talking about? I don't hear it.
Just got a few more comments here I'm rolling through. And we'll wrap it up here, Max. Is anything
Okay.
else you want to add to it or what?
No, that's basically got the procedure down, and that, like I said, this isn't I need the money. I do it for money, but that's not the main focus for me. Is I want to get these cars into the hands of people that will take care of them. As far as I'm concerned, these old cars are just like an endangered species. We need to protect them. We need to get them to people that will take care of them. Like your friend is, the demo guy.
Yes.
I get homicidal when I talk about people like that, because not only because the cars don't exist anymore, but because every time I want to buy a small piece of trim for my 63 Plymouth, it costs me $65 to $80. And that's because all of those cars were destroyed and they're just not around anymore to get the parts off of them.
No doubt.
It has affected every one of us that does these old cars.
Absolutely.
I didn't even touch on the special engines and everything that are in the Mexican cars and the no smog, but I guess we can do that another time.
No, if you want to keep going,
read the comments. Read the comments.
Oh, Carol just mentioned that 2013 Ford Transit Connect XLT Premium is the single greatest commercial vehicle in automotive history. I can speak a little bit about that working at the Ford store. The Transit Connect's very popular in this area. I like the size of them.
Are those the smaller ones?
No, the XLT I think is the bigger one, similar to like a Ram ProMaster.
Oh, okay, the big van.
Yeah, so they were, the utilitarian purpose of those was very good.
But do they keep running?
Well, it's a Ford, so you make your own conclusion to that.
Is it a Ford? What engine is in it?
Well, I actually don't know the Ford Transit Connect because
they're European vehicles.
Yeah, the European
vehicles.
Ford based, and I forgot if that was a Ford Europe casting, but a European design off of one of their conglomerates. I don't have the details on that actually. Yeah, Jay Jose said, yeah, another time to tell us about that or your wife will off you.
My wife took off, so I can say anything.
Oh, so you're safe now. You can say whatever you want. What if she's watching the live stream? Then you're in trouble.
Yeah, what you don't understand is she's a Mexican woman, so it's not like she's an American wife. There are differences.
Oh, 1.46 million miles on his Ford Transit. That's crazy.
How many engines and how many transmissions?
The 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. He said same transmission and engine.
Wow.
That's kind of amazing.
How many oil changes?
Built in Turkey.
How many oil changes?
Definitely had a lot of oil changes.
Yeah.
That's right. That was that Ford Transit that was built in Turkey. I forgot the company that Ford owns that makes those.
There was a car made in Turkey that was sold here. It was the Dodge Neon, the new Dodge Neon. And no, just do not buy one from there.
It is all about the maintenance. Peter King commented. I agree. In generalities, the no matter what the manufacturer it is, the more you maintain them, the longer they'll last. And with the oils being as good as they are today, and I'm talking in terms of low wear and the fact that they don't sludge up or cake up, it definitely they last a lot longer.
You also have to keep in mind that highway miles do not wear an engine. Wearing an engine is starting, stopping, starting, stopping. Just keep driving it on the highway, it'll run forever.
No, Cooper, don't tell racist jokes. Just reading comments here.
I saw this is not going to be racist because I'm Mexican, but I saw this I guess it was a short video. These two men walk up to their vehicles. Both of them are small SUVs, and the white guy walks up to his SUV and puts his foot underneath the rear bumper, and the rear door opens by itself, and he puts his stuff in there and he pushes a button and it closes it. And the guy that's standing there looking all smug, and the Mexican guy kicks the back of the car. His wife jumps out, opens up the back of the car, takes the stuff out of his hands, puts it in there, takes a beer out, opens it up, gives it to him, closes the rear hatch, and gets back in the car.
Do you want to get into the other part that you were mentioning?
I was just on the engines, the Mexico did not require smog equipment even into the 80s. So you open up the hood of a 1982 Fox body Mustang, and all you have is the engine and all the power that engine puts out. There's no smog pump. There's no anything. It's just engine. It's very nice, and it's exactly the way it came from the factory. So, the even the V8s were pretty smogged out in the Fox body Mustangs. They didn't go very fast. They could be made to go fast, but they didn't go very fast. But
do you want to get? I'm put you on center stage. You want to go through that for a second? I gotta tidy up something here quick. You want to go through the engine differences and
Well, it's like the truck that I sold to Jason has a Mexican 302 in it, and he showed me how to identify the Mexican 302 compared to the U.S. model. And supposedly, drag racers look for those engines. They're wanted because supposedly they have more nickel content or something, and it's a stronger block, and you can get more power out of it. But right from the factory, even though they had the same horsepower out of the engine as the U.S. cars did, they didn't have any smog equipment on it to drag them down. So, the Chevy is the same way. There's a car that was made. It's basically the Mexican version of the 1978 or 77 or 78 Chevy Nova SS, which had a 350 in it. The Mexican car has a 350 with a 4-speed and is a hatchback model. And they don't call it a Nova, they call it a Malibu Rally. And before anybody says anything, it's not because the two words Nova means no go. It's because the performance model was named the Malibu Rally, and they spelled rally Rallye. For some reason, they put the E on there. And the 4-door Nova was called a Nova Concourse. So they did use the Nova name here, but that Malibu Rally is all engine, 350 V8, 4-speed manual, just like they used to do in the 60s, a muscle car. And it's a really neat car compared to the US version, which would have been completely smogged out by 78. So it's hard to find one that's in decent condition, though. They've pretty much been raced at this point. But there's a lot of vehicles like that were completely smogged out by the late 70s, early 80s, that none of that existed in Mexico. So you could build on that. If you buy one, you build on that and make the engine even faster than it was before. There's a lot of options with that. The Plymouth Dusters were sold here with the 225 slant sixes, and then you had the Super Bs, which had the 318 or the 360 V8. The 318 was rated at 270 horsepower, and the 360 was rated at 300 horsepower. That's what Chrysler Mexico said it had. There's even an emblem like on the Dart GTS. It says 270 horsepower right on it. That's probably gross horsepower, but that's the rating that they gave it. So, but there's some decent power here in the Mexican engines.
And you mentioned that the high nickel content of the block. I know for the racers, I know in stock car racing around here back in the day with the small block Chevys, that was very common. They wanted the Mexican castings of the intakes stock, if I remember correctly, that they had a way better flow than the American ones because they were small. Mm-hmm. So if they found small block Chevy castings that were stamped Mexico, they were worth big bucks because all the stock car guys wanted them because they flowed better than whatever else was out there. So
yeah, because there was no smog from the factory on those.
Yeah, and
that pacer that pacer is, which I put as my avatar. I sent you pictures of that too, but
yes.
That it's been restored, but there was a few pacers sold in Mexico, not many, but this one has been restored really, really nice. I'm going to be posting it at some point. It's pretty far down the list, but I've never seen one that nice. And it's not like it's a really high dollar car either. The work is done fairly inexpensively here, and that reflects in the price. I mean, I've seen people post that the car's restored, they want 80,000 pesos for it. How could they restore a car for $4,000? How is that even possible?
It doesn't seem possible. I'm going to get that pacer put up here very shortly. Give us a brief synopsis of it. It does look absolutely gorgeous. I know you went with the red paint theme for the cars you were showing.
Well, I sent you a dark blue Cavalier, but this is
I got that one too.
This, of course, is an inline six because that's the only engine they had in Mexico for these VAM Ramblers. This one is an automatic, but they restored it to complete stock, which is nice. It has all its turn signals. It has its tail lights. It's just a really, really nice car.
When you say it has, it does, like, nobody's messed with the lenses and whatnot. They're not broken.
Right. Well, no. After all these years, the turn signal lenses crack. They fade. The tail lights are the same way because of the way they face the sun. They're usually cracked or faded. No, these are in really nice shape. My supplier used to have, because I sell tail lights and stuff sometimes. I have a supplier here in Mexico that makes them, and we used to have the Pacer turn signals, but they haven't made them in quite a while.
Like new reproduction or NOS stuff?
No,
okay.
Reproductions. Like I have the tail light lenses for the 64, 65, and 66 Plymouth Valiants, which also work on the 64, 65, and 66 Barracudas.
We got a lot of comments in the comment section still going strong, and I don't want to leave anyone out. So just I'm going to touch base on them, and I'm going to show the Pacer, and I'm going to show the Pontiac.
The Pontiac is an interesting one because it shows what they were doing in the factory at the time. Because the car is the same but different as the U.S. car.
So Alexander Gananka, if I'm saying that incorrectly, I apologize, has a question. Do you guys think anything can stop Toyota's Middle Eastern dominance in the trucking market? I have experience with the trucking market and trucks. I can't really speak to the world of Toyota in that part of the world, but I think Toyota as a company is pretty dominant in much of the vehicles that they produce, because for a large portion, and I don't know if it's the same way by you in Mexico, but Toyota and Hondas, they're pretty strong vehicles. They're built pretty well.
I think the answer to that question what can stop Toyota's dominance? That would be Toyota's engine in, what is it, the Tundra or something, that is failing, that they're recalling. Haven't you heard about that? That the engines are just blowing themselves up after a certain amount of time?
So I did hear my son works inside a Toyota dealership in the detail department, and yeah, that they had sand casting or something come through with it, and they had all kinds of problems. So in the passenger SUV section around here, at least, yes, that's an issue. But I don't know worldwide with the Middle Eastern dominance if that plays a role. The Ram, is the gentleman's name. I'm assuming gentleman. Sorry, don't know much about, but the 318 mated with the NV 4500 was the best combo in a truck. So I'm assuming the 318 V8, the NV.
That's a Nissan. That's a Nissan truck. The NB 4500, I think.
I thought so too.
That's the name we have on a truck here.
That's
Nissan.
kind of what I thought too. 318. I don't know Nissan made a 318, but Nissan. My son has a Infiniti QX56, which is basically the Nissan SUV large Armada, and that thing's got 200,000 miles on it. I use that to tow stuff. It's a decent vehicle. We had that for 4 years. Got it from the dealership I worked at. It was a trade-in.
It's just odd looking how they made it into an SUV. The way the rear window looks like it was an afterthought on the furthest window back. Looks like it's an afterthought.
Can't talk bad about Nissan. My wife's got a brand new Pathfinder, so it's
well, good luck with that transmission.
Yeah, it doesn't. No, this year they made a six. Is it a 6-speed or 8-speed? I think it's an 8-speed automatic. It's not a slip and slide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, those. I used to buy Saturn Views with the CVT transmissions and convert them to a regular 5-speed Aisin or Asian, however you say that, out of the Saturn Ions. I used to find those wrecked in the salvage yard and buy the transmission, the wiring harness, everything. I came up with a way to modify it to work, and those little SUVs, they were great.
There are a lot of Saturns driving around the streets here. A lot of them have been imported over the years. At the beginning of the 2000s, like 2001, 2002, Mexico opened up the border for only open bed pickup trucks because the country had a shortage of pickup trucks. So people were bringing all kinds of pickup trucks in. So right now, you can find, like in my area here where I'm not that far from the border, you can find all of the American trucks here, all the mini trucks, Toyota, Nissan, Chevy LUV, Ford Courier, everything you can find here. They're all here. Even though you can't find them over there, we got them all here.
I remember when the Chevy LUVs and the mini trucks were like a thing, late 80s, early 90s. It was huge around here anyways. I don't know what your experience was on the West Coast, but
well, my father would buy beat up Chevy LUVs and Ford Couriers from auto parts stores when they were done with them, that they would throw engines in the back and rolling around and damaging. He would fix them up, rebuild the engine, paint it, and sell it for $2,000 and still make money. Chevy LUVs and Ford Couriers, the first ones, the 72, 73s.
I put a comment on the board here. King Long Swipe mentioned that invest in a 3D printing machine and you'll be able to make your own taillights. I actually have a 3D printer. I never thought of making taillights. I don't know. Assume you could buy like red and yellow plastic and it prints out. I don't know how they would turn out. Do you have any experience?
There's a lot of intricacies to taillights because some of them have reflectors built in, some of them have lines, some of them have, it's not just a matter of printing them out. There needs to be a mold, and then needs to be done like that. But the suppliers here will not start a new project. Like people have said, hey, why don't you make the turn signals for a 1970 Plymouth Fury? Well, I've asked my supplier, and he's asked the manufacturers. They need an order of like 30,000 units in order for it to make sense for them. The taillights that they're selling right now are molds that they've had for years and years and years, and they've paid for themselves, so it's all profit at this point. But to start something new, they just won't do it unless they have a huge order.
So Alex was commenting on our discussion, I think, on Nissan and maybe my wife's transmission. He mentioned a 9-speed made by Mercedes. So I think my son mentioned something about that too. He was giving me the specs on this thing. She went and got it on her own. But we took that to Florida and back from Western New York, which is, a pretty decent ride. And we had 5 of us in the vehicle on the way down, and it was comfortable and shifted good, and it was a good deal.
As long as it's under warranty.
Oh yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah. Well, so Randy Roth is a new name in chat. Thanks for joining. It says I have a Tacoma 01 extra cab 4x4 2.7. Love my truck. So the taco, as we call it at the dealership, because ironically, when you pull up, you have make codes and model codes. When you look at Toyota, like Toyota make code is like Toyo, T-O-Y-O, and Tacoma is T-A-C-O. So we just call it the taco because they don't spell the whole thing out. It's 4 digits. Anyways,
you know something I forgot to mention, that the vehicles that I can sell have to be 25 years old or older.
Oh, yes. You mentioned that in past. I heard you say that, but we did not talk about it here.
No.
But similarly, from like importing vehicles from Japan.
From anywhere.
Right. Into the United States.
Right now, a 2000 model can cross, depending on the day it was made.
Date.
Yeah, yep. The day it was made.
Julian date.
The silver Ramcharger that you showed was made on October 16th, 1999. So as of 10 days ago, it is legal to cross. So I have the green Ramcharger that I bought for my client. It would have been 25 years old 6 months after that we bought it. So I had to keep it here at my house for 6 months and take care of it and wash it and everything. But so that's something that I'll do. No problem.
I got the Pacer on the screen because you mentioned that it was one of the vehicles we wanted to highlight, and I didn't have it pulled up before.
It is a beautiful car.
It is. The shine on it is amazing. That does not look like 1970s paint, that's for sure.
No, it's a restored car. They restored it, but the interior is immaculate. It's got black vinyl seats, and I really like the way they did it. I like the wheels that they painted the same color, and the small caps and the trim rings.
Yeah,
it just looks right.
It looks very clean, very clean. My buddy that does the demo derby, he has a Gremlin. That was a popular thing to V8 convert the Gremlins and make sleepers out of them or drag vehicles.
Gremlins did come from the factory with a 304. If you can find one.
Yeah,
over there, not here.
I can't imagine that they were stock. I think they put small block Chevys in them, quite honestly. Because the cost
it's the cheapest engine to find.
Right. Right. Now it's the LS. And you can't touch. Those guys are taking the LS version of the truck engines, taking them out, putting twin turbo in them, and adding big injectors. Are getting 500-600 horsepower reliable without doing anything except bolting on stuff and having it tuned. And I can remember guys putting 10 grand into a small block so that it would hold together and make 400 horse,
Like I told Tony, I never chased horsepower. I just enjoyed driving the cars because I always liked luxury cars. You could get a 20-year-old Cadillac for almost nothing, and it is still as much a luxury car as it was when that first buyer bought it for that full amount of money. It's just as comfortable. It has just as many power options and automatic headlights and automatic dimming. And I'm talking about a '60s car. When I was a teenager, I was buying Cadillacs because that's what I liked. That's what, and you could get them for almost nothing. You
I
know,
had I
67
had a
Cadillac.
I had a '64 sedan DeVille. Ironically, the day I bought it was like a snowy, cold day. My father came with me and flat towed me to my house because and the thing had like one brake that was working, but it was only like a mile down the road. So brought a rope and we flat towed it to my driveway. It didn't have an engine in it. And I went to the movies that night to see Catch Me If You Can
Uh-huh.
with Leonardo
Leonardo, yeah,
DiCaprio?
DiCaprio.
And his father had the exact same '64 Cadillac, white, identical to one. It was the first car I had that had a power manual radio antenna. So it had a power antenna, but you had to pull and push the knob to put it up and down. It didn't just
Yep,
go down with the.
on the stereo. Yep.
Yep. So I got
I
the Pontiac. Oh, go ahead.
my Cadillac didn't have a radio because it was a hearse, and they don't put radios in hearses. But I
Oh, yeah.
drove that. Mine was also white. I think it was originally black though. The car was 20 years old. It was a '63 model. This was an '85. The car had, I think, 24,000 miles on it, and it was a wonderful car, a side service car. It had the electric table in the back. It had a levelizer. I could tilt the car from one side to the other. In case
Oh,
you open the doors and they get caught on the grass, you could lift up the car to be able to close the doors. But that meant you had no rear suspension. It was just as solid as could be.
wow.
But I
That's
drove
what.
that car. I drove that car for a year as my daily driver. And if you learn how to drive and parallel park a hearse, you can drive anything you want to. It seems like a tiny car because they didn't change the steering mechanism. It's the same steering as in a passenger car, but they lengthened the car. So your 3-point turn turns into a 7-point turn to try
Oh,
to make a
God.
U-turn with that car. I had a
Yeah.
blast. I had a blast in it. It was a Landau, so it had the Landau bow on the side. And being a '63 and a commercial vehicle, it had the wraparound windshield, which your car didn't. Your car had the
No.
flat windshield. The
Nope.
commercial vehicles had the wraparound windshields. And in their infinite wisdom, they put the tiny stock right hand side rear view mirror on the fender right outside the huge A pillar. So
So you.
I could see maybe a quarter of the mirror to make a right hand, to change lanes to the right or whatever. So I always drove with the headlights on, always, day or night, and it had a cornering light, of course. So I would either back up, if I wanted to change lanes, I would accelerate in front of the car and move over, or I would go back one and move over, and nobody ever challenged me.
I had so Max. I got the Pontiac pulled up on
Okay,
here
that
now.
that is a, that is an interesting car, and there's something that stood out to me with the Mexican cars in that the cars always had the largest engines that were available for them in the line. For what I'm trying to say is this car has a 3.1 liter V6 in it with a 5-speed manual transmission. This is a 1994 Cavalier Z24 in Mexico. You might recognize it as a Pontiac Sunbird GT on the outside. Okay. The interior is Cavalier. Because the Pontiacs had this weird dashboard that was claustrophobic and had all these pods on the side. This has the Chevy interior. No 4-cylinder Cavaliers were ever sold in Mexico. Well, there was when the Quad 4 came out. Then they started using that because that was the largest engine that they had. But every one of these Cavaliers had, whether it was the 2-door Z24 or the regular fastback or the 4-door sedan. The 4-door sedan had the 2.8. 6-cylinder. This had the 3.1 with the 5-speed, and I would love to get my hands on one of these and just keep it forever in red, because I bought a brand new '87 Sunbird SE with a 5-speed, and that was a great car. It was the older style before they went to this style, the square one, and I really liked that car. But I would take one of these and drive it forever. But they mixed and matched the parts with the Pontiac Sunbird, because Pontiacs weren't sold in Mexico at this time. So they had the Pontiac body with the Chevrolet interior, and then the 3.1 V6 engine. It's in the same thing with the Mustang. They never sold it with a smaller engine, always a V8. The cars always had the biggest engines, but you could buy the smallest engines in the trucks. And that seemed backwards to me, since trucks would need the torque to haul the stuff in the back. Another thing that they did backwards was the license, paying on the license plates. They had a thing called tenencia, which was brought out in 1968 to help pay for what they spent for the Olympics that came to Mexico. Well, they never got rid of it. They kept it and kept it and kept it, and people were paying this extra fee to the government to register the car every year. Well, on a car, it was a certain percentage of the value of the car every year, but on a pickup truck, it was almost nothing. You didn't have to hardly pay anything, and that seemed backwards to me, because a company usually would own a pickup truck, and they would be able to take it off their taxes and everything, and they would have the money to pay it, where somebody driving a personal car that had to pay a couple extra thousand pesos for the license plate, out of their personal pocket, it seemed that the company would be able to pay it, whereas a personal person shouldn't have to. That seemed backwards to me, but that's the way they did it. They finally got rid of tenencia like 6 or 7 years ago. It had to be legislated out of existence after all these years from 1968.
That's wild.
Just like any other government, they're not going to give up the money unless you force them to.
Right. Absolutely. It's all about the money always.
Yep.
Don't want to get too far political, you know what I mean? But you know what I mean. Speaking of that, you guys have a new president in Mexico, I thought, right? First female president?
First female president in North America.
How is that, I haven't heard anything since she took office. Is there any notable changes or any feel of anything?
I haven't noticed anything, but I don't pay attention to much of the political stuff going on here. I know that she has this electric car for Mexico that she's going to introduce, this little, get around car. I don't know what the range is or anything, but I can tell you that as hard as it was for me to find gasoline on that trip back home with that carryall, there was absolutely no chargers out there on the highway. None. You cannot drive an electric car on the highway here.
Really?
Unless it's behind a tow truck, a gasoline powered tow truck. But there's no chargers. I could hardly find gasoline. There was no chargers anywhere out there.
Is that like that meme or joke that I saw that said, 94% of all electric cars are still on the road, and then the other 6% made it to their destination?
Yeah. I went to look at a truck in Hermosillo for another client, and it was a Ford pickup, an extra cab, 4-wheel drive pickup. And he had it in his garage, and we're talking, and he had like 4 vehicles in there or something, and he says, well, I want to sell this truck because my wife wants an electric car. And I had just had that experience. There's no chargers out there. I said, well, what are you going to do if you go out on the highway? He says, wouldn't take an electric car out on the highway. We're going to take that Honda there on the highway. She's just going to drive it around town. And I'm thinking to myself, you're going to spend all that money for an electric car to do what a 3-cylinder Geo could do, a Geo Metro. Yeah. You're just going to drive it to the store and drive it home, and that's it. Because you can't drive it on the highway.
The only time that I thought about getting an electric vehicle was the time when I worked at a dealership where we had a charge station that was free, and I was looking at a Nissan Leaf because the range of a Nissan Leaf is like horrible. But I
Yeah.
figured, well, I could drive essentially for free, is I could charge it at work, drive home, drive back to work, charge it at work, drive home, you know. But I never ended up.
You can
doing it.
never depend on that, because if you change jobs or something, then the situation changes. So I just talked to a friend of mine that I hadn't talked to for a while. He was a friend of mine in high school. So we just had our 40th reunion that I didn't go to. It was in California, and he didn't go to it either. He says, I don't know anybody there, because like I stayed out of 3,000 kids in school, I stayed friends with 2. The rest I didn't care about.
Yeah.
You know, all the actors and kids of director, I didn't care about any of them. This one I stayed in touch with and everything. And he said last February he bought himself a Chevy Bolt with a B, a brand new car,
Yeah.
all electric, and he's never
Yep.
had an electric car before. And he just bought himself a house, but in order to put the charger in the house, he has to basically redo the whole electrical system in his house, because the house is from 1959 and it wouldn't handle that kind of power. So
Doesn't
it's
have
going to
the
cost him
amperage.
$5,000 to $6,000 to put a charger in the house. So in the meantime, he has to drive it to City Hall in his town, not too far away, but he has to sit there for an hour while his car charges up
Oh yeah,
and play with his phone.
we had at the dealership I worked at, we're right on the highway heading towards Niagara Falls, and
Mhm.
used to see people there just waste. Well, I don't want to get too far into it, but they just sit there charging their car for like an hour or two just to
Mhm.
get where they were needing to go. And I said,
Right.
man, what a way to spend life, you know?
It's like going backwards to the horses, where the horse will go for a while, then you have to stop and feed him and let him
Yeah,
drink water and stuff, and then you could go again. And in the meantime, usually they have chargers where, at a casino, at a mall, something like that, so you spend a whole bunch of money while you're waiting for your car to charge. So
yeah.
it's
The cool.
it's all marketing.
So staying on the cool side of the electric vehicle trend, I got to drive. So when Jaguar came out with the I-Pace, I got to go to California and drive the I-Pace, the El Toro Air Station, which is where the American version of that English car show that I can never remember the name of is filmed. Anyways, the we drive the electric cars. We drove a Tesla. It was the insane acceleration. It's like you're driving a supercharged big block.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. It's all the torque, all the power now. As soon as you step on the throttle pedal, it's all there. But it doesn't have the sound and feel of a big block. It's missing the sound. I like the sound, the roar of a V8.
Right, but that gets old when you're driving from signal light to signal light to signal light on your way to work.
I get it. And
So-
every we had 4 Teslas come in for their annual safety inspection, which I wanted to ask you. I saw that one Pontiac had a bunch of stickers on the window. Do you even have safety inspections on cars?
Okay, in the big cities, in Mexico City and Guadalajara and Monterrey, you do have to smog the car.
Really?
There's no safety inspections, but you do have to smog the car, and you have to put a sticker on the windshield to show that you have the current smog for that year, and then you have a registration sticker that you also put on the windshield, and then when you get your license plate, you put the sticker of your license plate on one of the windows. Now, I know for a fact that razor blades do exist in Mexico because I've seen them for sale at AutoZone, but people don't. So you'll see a 30-year-old car, and they just keep putting more and more stickers blocking the windows. More and more and more stickers, so they can't see. And it's not like they put it on the rear window on their side that they never actually look at it. They put it on the rear window so it blocks everything, or they put it on a side window that they have to see to change lanes, or they put it on the windshield that they need to see through. So no, I know for a fact razor blades are sold here. I've seen them. I've actually bought them here. But like masking tape is the same thing. that people don't use masking tape. They'll paint something and they don't use masking tape. A friend of mine that I moved to Mexico with, he got this idea in his head to build this big mansion on the other side of town, which caused a huge amount of problems, but I won't get into that. And he spent a lot of money on that place, building it with marble floors and everything you
Oh,
can think of. And I look at the baseboard, and they painted it without masking tape. So they got paint on the floor and on the wall.
oh,
Masking tape does not cost that much money. Why not use it?
yeah, right.
Uh,
You wouldn't expect that.
even when you're paying them good money, because he paid them good money, they still will not use masking tape. Won't.
Hmm.
And that does exist here too, because I go to Walmart once a week. You know, it's there. They do sell it.
The paint job on the one Woody wagon that was hand painted wood, not vinyl, I found that very, very cool.
That's what it looked like to me when I saw the close-up pictures. I could see the brush strokes, and I've seen other people do it too. But it does look like wood grain to me.
Yeah, no, it definitely didn't look like vinyl. It looked like it was painted.
Mm-hmm. But you know, you find those Fairmonts with I mean, that's a what we had here was the 2-door box top, the 4-door sedan, or the 4-door wagon. And in every one of them, and again, they only came with a 302 V8 until 1983, where they put the 3.8 V6 in some of them, which I don't know why they did that, but that was the last year for the car. But you could get a wagon, you could get a Squire wagon with the 302 and a 3-speed manual. The 3.8 actually came with a 4-speed manual for some reason, but the Fairmonts came with a V8 and a 3-speed manual. You could get it in a wagon, you could get it, you know, you could get a fully loaded car with a 3-speed manual on the floor transmission. Very interesting
The
car.
3.8, that engine in the United States, anyways, was typically an iron block with aluminum heads. It was like one of the first, I would say, first mass-produced engines in that configuration.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a problem with the head gaskets of the day failing on those. And the service bulletin, when you put the new head gaskets on, you take anti-seize or never seize or whatever they are, basically aluminum grease, and spread it on the head gaskets so that they wouldn't scrub and fail.
Okay,
that was Ford's
whatever
solution.
works.
I used that for years on every engine I did that with.
Another car that was sold in Mexico, the configuration was sold in Mexico that they didn't have in the U.S. was the 83 T-Bird, not the Cougar, but the T-Bird, 83 T-Bird, the 89 design, the 88, 87, 88, and the 89 design. You could get the V6 with a factory stick shift in it. They did not sell that in the U.S. They only sold the turbo coupes and the SC with the stick shifts. The base model T-Birds did come with the stick shift.
My good friend has a 82 T-Bird, and it's definitely an automatic. I don't think I've ever seen a manual transmission.
That's a Fox body. That's a Fox body, though.
Right.
That one wasn't sold here.
And the ones you're talking about was a newer one after that?
the Aerobird style. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like the Super Coupe style. That's
the Turbo Coupe. Yeah, those things. But yeah, they came. You could get it in a stick shift. I think it was a 5-speed, but that makes the car more interesting to drive. There's a lot of configurations. Did you see the station wagon I posted a while back? It was a Ford full-size station wagon, 1973 model, with a 351 in it, 351 Windsor, and a 3-speed on the tree.
No, I don't remember seeing that. If I did, I don't recall it on the thing. We have a comment here. DJ Air, thanks for joining us. Question, please. I have a Toyota Venza 2010. My fuel is going fast, 1 mile a gallon. What do you think?
There's a leak.
I would have to think leak. I think that's too much fuel for it to be.
There's no way a Venza could burn that much. There's no way. If it did, you would be seeing black smoke out the back.
Right.
And heavily.
The question is why you wouldn't see it or smell it. Although I've had some high pressure fuel lines where it sprays out into like almost a vapor. It's kind of scary.
You can still smell it though.
Yeah, you do. Oh yeah. He said no smoke.
There has to be some kind of
He's
leak
trying to get
somewhere.
another year out of it. I would say a mile per gallon. That's just
I don't know if it's this way over there, but here in Mexico, we have to check our fuel lines every year or so because the heat will crack them and it'll just start spraying gas all over the place. The quality of the hose is really bad, and you get a lot of leaks that way.
so. DJ Air, I do want to ask if you're seeing any performance difference from before till now.
Is this a
Things
test?
that I don't know. It's just maybe they're I don't know. Maybe he's messing with me. Could be. But mass airflow sensor, that if the mass airflow sensor is reading inaccurately, it can cause excessive amounts of fuel. But when you get into a realm where the fuel mileage is that bad, it would completely inhibit the performance of the car. You would notice drastic problems with
Going from
driving.
30 miles per gallon to 1 mile per gallon?
Yeah,
It wouldn't even
I
be
don't know
running.
I've ever seen, even with something completely bad, some kind of he says it seems like it's getting a lot faster. It's I don't have an explanation for that. Yeah, super rich, but running super rich would not cause it to run with more power. It would start carboning up and blocking the catalytic converter and overheating it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting stuff.
Over the next few years, there's going to be some interesting cars that are going to be able to be crossed.
Like what?
I don't have specifics on them, but there was I think you can cross it's a Chevy Tigre. It's a tiny little car. It's actually an Opel.
Okay.
That was sold here. I think it's a 1999 model. It can't cross now. Smart, the 4.4 was sold here in the early 2000s. I don't think they sold it in the U.S. They only sold the 4.2, the two-seater. Then they also made the Smart Roadster here. They sold the Smart Roadster here in the early 2000s. So there's going to be some interesting vehicles coming up over the next few years that can be crossed.
That'd be neat. All right, so we made it past your time, 6 p.m. No, we did good,
yep.
Man.
6 p.m.
I appreciate having Mexican Spec on for my first live stream guest. Think it went fairly well. I appreciate everyone joining us tonight. I love all the comments. Wish Mex could see all of them. We had a pretty busy comment section going on.
I don't know why I couldn't see it. I saw it on Tony's channel. I wasn't able to interact with them because I'm not signed in. I don't have this signed into my YouTube channel. But
maybe it's because I don't
weird.
have the premium version. Maybe it's because I have the budget version of our.
That is very possible. You didn't get all the options.
Yes.
At least you can see them.
Right.
But the next time, if I come on with you again, can we do a horizontal live?
I will try a horizontal live.
Because then everything would be better. There would be more room on the screen. Everybody could see it. You and I would be able to see everything bigger. I would be able to read
I do want to change it to a horizontal live, and I do want to look at numbers. So I want to tell everyone that's in chat and watching the live stream that the last 2 or 3 weeks consecutively, we had 7,500 people watching the live stream, and I am a tiny channel compared to like Uncle Tony's Garage. I don't know what he gets in terms of numbers. It would be interesting to know that statistic. Now, those the numbers that YouTube and StreamYard gives me are like unique visitors to the live stream. So YouTube promotes this format in the vertical format and puts them in short feeds. So when you watch YouTube and it gives you the shorts, it puts live streams and forces them into the short video streams.
I haven't seen
Supposedly.
that. When I look at the short stream, all I see are shorts.
I know, but that's what they sent out a message, and then about a month and a half ago, they sent me like an individual coach for YouTube talking about live streams. They wanted me to sign up for it, and I didn't sign up for it in time. I wish I did, but thank you, DJ Air. I appreciate you coming on, and I appreciate that you like the channel. And then see something wrong. I like your username. They promote the live stream in the same format as the shorts with the vertical thing. So I think that's why it's getting promoted a little bit more than the horizontal. But I definitely have you come back. You want to do it again next week, Max? Same kind of format, and we'll do it horizontal.
Hopefully, I'm going to be out on the road buying a car.
Oh,
I hope.
Okay. Well, then the next time you can.
Yeah, we'll have to see, because I have one carryall that the guy wants. I have the red one. Something may have happened to my client because he hasn't contacted me in a week. He says, he's ready to go, but that's going to a small town in Jalisco near Guadalajara. But
and where is he in the States?
He is in he's in the top part of Oregon on the left side.
Oh, West Coast.
Yeah, west coast of Oregon, way up there. So he would either come down and pick the truck up from Jason, or however we would do that. But yeah, it's another carryall, and that seller has also been very cooperative with sending me, and he keeps asking me, have you heard anything yet? Have you heard anything yet? Because I said it's for a friend of mine. I'm like, no, he has over a week. He hasn't sent me any messages. So I really do need to, because I don't have the guy's phone number. It's just through Instagram. So unfortunately,
DJ Air, I put my Gmail email account up on the screen. You want to email me, and maybe I can look into your situation with your car running that poorly. Fuel mileage, I don't know that I got.
Is the check engine light on?
He did not mention that. They were talking amongst themselves about getting a scan tool and getting at least codes out of it. So maybe he does have a check engine light. So, and Randy Roth made a comment that the new fuel makes the injector stick. I absolutely agree that the ethanol-based fuel hurts the injectors. I have a story. I'll share it next week, maybe. When I bought one of those Saturn Views, and I got an engine and transmission from the salvage yard, put it in, think it had been sitting there a while. And when I took it for a ride, it didn't have any power, and it ended up being the injectors were clogged. The ethanol fuel corrodes the aluminum in the fuel rail, and all that ends up in the injectors. But it doesn't. I didn't have one stick open, although I could see it doing that. Maybe that's what he's got going on. But I had them clog up, and I had to change them out. So, anyways, Rex, thank you so much for being my first guest on live stream. I know you're making the rounds at all the big channels, not my channel, but Uncle Tony's Garage.
I'm not making rounds. I was just on Tony because I'm his mod, and nobody else showed up.
Well, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you coming on and making this an event. 3 hours and 15 minutes. It's an awesome run on a live stream, and everyone that came on and joined us and commented, I really appreciate you guys being here. I look forward to you guys being here next week. We'll do it every Saturday, 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time.
Okay.
It's in West Coast. That was 3 o'clock. Now it's 6 o'clock your time, right?
Yeah.
So, anyways,
Jay, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about something I'm knowledgeable about. Tony kept asking me questions that I know nothing about what the best rear end is. I don't know. He's talking about rear ends in cars, and I'm thinking about, I don't know, Kardashian or, Lopez, what's her name, Lopez or whatever. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
whatever is under the car when I get it, that's what I use.
right.
I don't go switching things out or anything like that. So
No, I know.
I don't know one from the other.
I got you.
Whatever. I like the way old cars
I
drive, so I
know.
drive them. That's it.
So, all right, cool. Well, I appreciate you guys being here. Max, thanks again.
Thank you, everybody in the chat, from being here, even though I couldn't see your messages. Maybe Jay will actually pay the money he needs to pay to give me.
Yeah. Well, we keep doing 3-hour live streams. Absolutely. Right. So, have an excellent week. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow in Uncle Tony's garage. And if not, good luck with picking up that vehicle on Saturday. All right.
Well, I don't know if I'm going, but I'm making deals all the time.
Cross our fingers, say our prayers.
Just have to close them. So, thank you very much, Jay. Good night, everybody.
Yeah. Have a good night. Take care, guys. Thanks again.